Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and I'm actually joined by someone. I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Mark, aka HybridToy. How's it going, sir?
It's great, yeah. It's great to be back. I haven't been particularly involved with the channel recently, so I'm very happy to be here, and
it's been a while.
Very happy to be talking about what we're going into today.
Yeah.
And looking forward to getting into this. So.
Yeah, so we're talking about the one and only Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. You guys know I've already done my own sort of opinions and videos on it since I finished it. However, I thought it would be a good time to revisit it and also give Mark here a chance to get his opinions out, because I think for the most part we're probably going to have similar thoughts on it, but there might be things that you enjoyed that I didn't, and vice versa. And obviously the game, you can go off in so many different ways that it'd be kind of interesting to see what you did versus what I did and all that good stuff, basically. Yeah. So let's just start with then, as an overview of your experience, you know, just give me like your immediate thoughts and feelings on playing this game and enjoying it or not enjoying it and all that stuff.
I had an absolute blast playing this game.
Surprising, no.
It's not particularly a surprise. I had high hopes for when it came out. I didn't know anything about it. I did what I do with any game. I go in as blind as possible. I'll watch a trailer or something and that'll be it. And yeah, this was just another epic adventure. I wanted it to live up to, or nearly live up to, Breath of the Wild. And I mean, they've just gone and triumphed yet again. And it just amazes me that Nintendo can just keep coming up with all these like incredible ideas for Zelda games, just putting more and more like crazy content into like the world was already built for them. It's obviously essentially the same world, but there's enough difference in here where you're just like, okay, this isn't just like a add-on kind of thing. There's so much different in here, and we'll get into that. But yeah, I had an epic time. 125 hours I played this game for. Yeah. I knew fairly early on, or I knew sort of 30 or 40 hours or so in, and I was like, I'm gonna break the 100-hour mark with this. This game is enormous. And I just kept coming across stuff to do, getting sidetracked, just I want to do this, that and the other, and just like having a blast with it, having long sessions because I just wanted to there was so much I wanted to get done. Just getting so immersed in it, and I always looked forward to each play session. Just I didn't find any of it to be a drag at all. Like it was just a super fun adventure the whole time, just finding new things to explore all the time, and just getting sidetracked forever. And exceeded expectations. I would actually say it exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I mean, I've had time to sit on it. So I think I put anywhere between 80 and 90 hours. I can't remember. Maybe I did hit 100. I honestly can't remember.
I've seen your profile on the Switch. Yeah. This is 105.
Oh,
so
okay. There you go.
I can vouch for you.
I know that some of that was for recording footage.
Okay. But, so probably slightly lower.
Yeah, it's probably about 100 hours, I think. But I honestly, it came around pretty quick. You know, I was like, playing it, and this game, it does pull you in every direction constantly. You're like, oh, I want to get some more of this resource, but then I also want to go do more of this thing, and then I want to go and do this thing. The amount of time, like, this isn't a game you can sit down and play for half an hour.
No,
like,
not at all.
If you're not putting a 4-hour session in, you get nothing done unless you beeline.
Even 2 hours is difficult. Yeah, it's just like I need 3 hours at least.
Yeah.
Especially when you're right in the middle of it, and you're coming across a shrine. And then nearby the shrine, you see a cave and a Korok and something else. And then you'll go and do the Korok and you'll see another something else. And it's just like, oh my god, I have to write notes of everything that I've... Like, all of the stuff that I'm trying to do here. Kind of ready for my next playthroughs, like my next session.
Next list of things. Overall, I very much enjoyed the game. definitely think that it was really cool that we got to revisit this world. I think that was the biggest thing. It's not often we get to do that with Zelda games. Only one other time I can really think, and that's Link Between Worlds. But I think overall there was a lot of stuff in this game that makes this game incredibly just like fun and double downing on like exploration and the tools you have and the things you can do. Like, I have my gripes with this game, but despite all that, like this game is, well, one, the fact that it even runs on the Switch, like how this game doesn't break, I don't know. The amount of stuff you can stick together and things. But just this is a creative game. This is a game that you pick up. This isn't like, I wouldn't go into this thinking I'm going to 100% it. It's like, no, go into this with the creative mind. Do what you're comfortable with and then end the experience and just be like, done. Because you could put probably 200, 300 hours into this. But I think once you start to run out of steam, that's when I think the game technically falls apart a little bit. But like, if you go in and you do the shrines and you do the dungeons and you do the side quests you want to do everything that you want to do, tie it all off by doing the final boss fight and walk away, and you've got a wonderful experience. Which I think is important.
Yeah, I think if you feel like you're doing busy work or you're burning out, then you don't need to do every side quest or every shrine. It's like if you play any big open world game like that, you get the same from playing Skyrim or Fallout or whatever. You know, you do as much as, you don't need to visit every single location on the map. Exactly. Like, try and do the majority of it so that you're like, you get a feel for the game as a whole. But if you feel like you're doing too much of one thing, or you just fed up of doing caves or whatever, just move on. You don't have to do it, and that's the freedom that these games give you.
100%. So let's start things off then. Like, that's our sort of overview of it. We're going to break down different things right now and talk about, you know, all kinds of stuff and our experiences with it. I was going to start with like Hyrule, but considering we start in the sky, let's talk about the sky. Let's start with the sky, then we'll do Hyrule, then we'll do the underground. So we'll start with like the actual places you're in. How did you find the starting area, because you obviously start up in the sky, and two, like the things you do in the sky, like the sky as an area as a whole?
So the starting area was fine. It was good to get each ability and learning sort of what they do. I was intrigued to find out what the abilities were going to be in this game compared to Breath of the Wild. I think they were like, there were similarities. There was, you know, similar things you could do with some of them, but some of them were quite different as well. Like, I mean, Fuse is just that's just next level. We can get into abilities later, but the area was fine. It was a good place to start to go against some of the most basic enemies and kind of getting used to being like the kind of physics of the game again, climbing things and the combat and everything. The problem I had when I played the starting area is that I went over to the cold area with some spicy peppers, thinking, I'm sure the game will allow me to do this in any order. And I cooked up some peppers and went to the top of this snowy area, and I didn't know what to do when I got to the top. And I was like, am I being stupid? What's going on here? And I couldn't activate the shrine.
Oh, right,
because the game wanted me to go to the temple first, which, to be fair, is the objective. But I didn't know what was going to be up that snowy area, and I just cooked up a load of my peppers and spent ages getting up there in very like quickly getting up there, so I didn't run out of time with like cold resistance. So I was a bit frustrated that I couldn't do everything in any order. A lot more
linear.
It is a bit linear, that top bit, but generally, like, it was good, and I enjoyed, once you finish that bit, then diving down to Hyrule was like, okay, I've done this starting area, cool. And now I'm opening. I did perhaps prefer in Breath of the Wild when you literally just wake up, walk through a tunnel, and then just the world is there, and you're just like, whoa. That was a more epic opening, I would say.
I agree.
if we're gonna get into like the starting area, that's one of my very few negatives I can say about it, I guess.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, I hated the starting area. I legit it wound. I mean, I died a couple of times. The reason why I didn't like it was the Great Plateau, while somewhat linear, doesn't feel linear, and I think that's the biggest difference with this. It's like, I understand the mechanics are a lot more complicated. When you get the different abilities, you need to you need to learn how to use them. But it just, the sooner I got off of that fucking first area, the better. Like, as soon as you get out of there and you dive down and the game does open up, I'm like, great. Now I understand the linearity of it, but the Great Plateau just it was still like, you still had to do the 3 shrines, you still had to get all the powers, but you could basically do them in any order. As soon as you came out, as soon as you spoke to the guy, the king basically with the paraglider, it's like, yeah, go to these shrines, and you could just do it, and you could still, there was still a large area to fuck around in, like because the thing with this Sky Island is it's quite easy to just fall off if you're not careful. Like, there's a lot there that you can do on it, like, you know, hooking things on the railings and shooting off the little islands and stuff like that. Like, it was fun, but in comparison, this was like, this was a significant downgrade for me personally as a starting area. But I do appreciate why it is, and there are things like, you know, you can like there's a big waterfall, like you can put the logs together, make a raft and ride it down the waterfall. There's things like that. It's designed in a way to try and help people understand these abilities. But I think it's one of the weakest parts of the game is the start, and it's took me about 2 hours to get out of that area. I think.
It's been so long since I did that, because that was the start of the game, and I did that a few months ago. So I'm actually, I guess I've forgotten how long it actually was, but it does take a couple of hours. And it's like, you just want to get down to the actual world and have that freedom to do whatever you want, rather than being in this quite contained area where you have to do things in a certain order, and you're just like, okay, this is a bit long.
There is some cool stuff there, like the fact that it teaches you about the plants that you can drop and whack and they become lights and stuff, and you go into like the mining area. Like, there are bits of it that I did like the temple, for example, is really coolly designed and stuff like that. But the sky itself outside of that is much more interesting than the starting area. Like, the places you can see and go to, and some of the crazy stuff. Like, some of the things are so fucking high up in the sky.
It's crazy.
You're like, how the hell am I getting up there? And like, there's all sorts. You've got like the big spinning orbs. You've got the labyrinths that are up there. You've got a couple of dungeons. You know, there's so much variety up there. Like, there is sort of the similar kind of cross platforms with like the dispensers and stuff on it. But I like the fact that like, each set of islands, or like things that you can see in the sky, there's its own challenge in itself. Like, how do I get there? Like, and that was far more interesting to me than this starting island, which was like, you know, the starting area. The only time you go back there is to upgrade your battery, or one other thing you can do there. But basically, like, the rest of the sky stuff I enjoyed. I loved just like getting that high up and looking around and like diving off stuff and things. So I don't know if you had the same experience, but did you find things in the rest of it that you enjoyed, like getting to or finding things?
Definitely, the sky was really fun to explore, and I guess a big part of that was just the view you get from up there. You can see the rest of the world, and you can you can really look around and see where everything is.
The draw distance is pretty incredible.
Yeah, the draw distance is very impressive. And there's a lot to do up there. There was some cool challenges. There's one where you had to sort of drop down through a load of like green
the
hoops.
Lasers. Oh, the hoops, yeah.
As like a challenge for like I think that was a shrine quest. There were the kind of almost like planet things where there's like a hole in it and you go into it. And then there was like one of them had like a mirror puzzle in it which unlocked a shrine or something. And I really enjoyed some of that. And there's the things where there's like a little almost like a piston type thing where it shoots you and you can get over to certain areas. There's some like cool little ways of getting shrines up there. I thought the sky labyrinths was really cool. The way they mirrored up with the overworld ones.
Yeah.
So you had 3 in Breath of the Wild, and you had 3 in this game, but you had the sky thing to go with it, and you were like paragliding around it, which gave a different dynamic to the ground ones.
They were way better, I think, the sky ones.
Yeah.
Because they were quicker, and you could just sort of maneuver around them. And I just found them a lot more fun, because the problem with the ground ones is you can somewhat break them if you just get on the top of them. But these, I did like them as they were.
One of the coolest things about doing the sky labyrinths was at the end you then jump off, you go down through the air, through the land, and right down into the depths, and you basically go from like highest point to the lowest point, and I was like, that is so cool. They just wanted to show that off, basically. They were like, look what you can do here with no load screens. So that was pretty awesome. And then just trying to think of what else there was. There's definitely other things in the sky.
There's shrines that go and find the crystal, and you have to maneuver to other islands. There's the we'll get more onto them later, but the constructs that are on their own islands.
Yeah, the flux constructs, where you get the you tend to get Sage's wills from doing them.
Yes,
I enjoyed them.
They were fun. They were actually creative.
There was 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
I seem to come across way more 3s than anything else. Because I think 1 and 2s were probably quite easy, and then 3 was a bit more difficult. But we can get onto them.
So there was those. You like you said, the Sage's wills. You had. Mainly shrines. You had the dispensers up there that you could put the thing in to get items to use to make stuff like springs and stuff.
Another thing I wanted to mention about being in the sky was the anti-gravity sections.
Oh, they were great.
So good. You just sort of go into the area and something atmospheric happens.
It goes
there's a little
thing,
a weird thing happens, and then you're the first time it happened, I was like, what just happened? And then you realise that you're, oh shit, there's some and I found that so cool. I think it was when I was doing the getting up to the water temple. You had to climb up quite a lot in there,
hop up and stuff,
I felt like, I'm almost literally floating on the clouds right now. I'm just hopping through the air to get up to this temple. It just gave it so much. That just added to the atmosphere of being in the sky. I absolutely loved that they implemented that. That was really cool.
Did you go? I think you must have. Did you go to the island that's got the thunderclouds on it?
Yes, because you have to do that
to get to one of the.
That's the bit that you do just before you go to the construct factory.
Yeah.
So there's 2 shrines in that area. So I did both of them. Yeah.
So I went there before you clear it. And that is a hard challenge trying to get to places in it.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the challenge of not being able to see anything.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool. Overall, I think the sky was actually fairly well implemented. There is a lot of the same islands in there, the cross ones that you have to get. Pretty much any shrine up there, or for the most part, most of the shrines up there, you did some kind of challenge, go get the crystal, or jump through some hoops or whatever, and then that's how you would get the shrines, which is fine. I don't mind that. But some of the best ones were the ones when you got into the spinning balls and doing those things.
That was cool.
Yeah, and then there's just a lot of interesting ways to get around up there. You can obviously glide, but you can also just build something out of fans or put rockets on stuff and get around and things. So that was kind of cool. Anything else to say on the sky? Otherwise, we'll.
I don't know. I think, overall I thought it was cool. There was enough variety up there. There was a lot of fun things to see and do, as you said, anti-gravity and the sky labyrinths and things like that. And then generally just being able to seamlessly then drop down into the land below without being restricted. I think any other game would it would go black screen and then you'd end up on the ground. But you could just being able to drop anywhere. Just
one thing that I actually quite liked, when you were that high up, you could see, if you were looking for dragons, it was very easy to see them and also fly to them.
And the geoglyphs. And the chasms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Was really easy to like just be like, oh.
Yeah, like you could literally just get the like, because the thing in this game, when you get the telescope out, it doesn't stop time, but it slows down time significantly. So you could just hang there for ages and look around and kind of figure things out.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. But it does, being that high up, which we haven't got to the towers, but the towers are a great way of doing that, like getting shot up into the air to be able to like see. I think that was really cool, like using the fact that you have that height to be like, there's a dragon over there, I'm going to try and get to it, or like there's a geoglyph over there, let me see if I can like get a picture of how big it is, you know.
Yeah.
Having that verticality actually really helped with, one, getting around, but two, just like almost like puzzles from a high above, being like, oh, you know, I can see something, how can I deal with it?
Helped you decide where you wanted to go next in the overworld and be like, oh, I want to do that, that and that, and then just set some markers and just then you'd have a list of things you want to do next. Yeah. Once you're done with whatever you're doing in the sky, and then you're like, oh god, I've got loads of stuff.
It's like, oh no, there's literally like all my maps just covered in icons and stuff. Yeah. All right, cool. So we'll go to the next level, which is Hyrule itself. This is obviously returning from Breath of the Wild, but there are significant changes, and when you go to like the 4 sort of major cities, well, no, I suppose all the cities and places and villages you go to, something drastic has happened to pretty much all the places. So while you might land and be like, oh, this seems fairly normal, as soon as you go to certain areas, certain places, things were different. And I think that was something that really drove me, was going, oh, I remember going there. Like, for example, there's a Colosseum on the map, which when you go there in Breath of the Wild, you fight a Lionel, I believe, like the highest level Lionel. This time, there's a fucking dragon in there, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's cool seeing those things happen. But, yeah, what was your experience like when you were exploring and either recognizing parts from the past game? Like, was there anything that really stood out to you? Like, or was there things that you like, oh, that's really cool? Or was you just surprised to see all the new stuff that had changed?
So, just to take this back a step, I went into this game so blindly, I didn't even know that the map would be pretty much the same as the Breath of the Wild map.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I was like, I don't know what to expect. Like, what's gonna... Yeah. And then as I started it and I was like, oh yeah, this looks familiar. And then I got to realise that, oh, wait a minute, this is the same map.
Yeah.
So there was this... And I was enjoying being back in Hyrule and like having all this freedom and to explore, and I did some shrines and they were different, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's different. But I had this like, I think early on I did have this slight concern that is this going to be too similar?
Yeah.
We're in the same world, there's different shrines, but the world is the same. And I was like, oh, is it just like, yeah, going to be too similar? But then as I went on, I was like, there's so much different stuff. Yeah. There's different enemy types. There's different locations. The like you said, the villages are different. Yeah, definitely. And everything like that. And I think, and I was like, yeah, this is different enough to be like awesome, and I just want to explore it. I don't feel like I'm just treading the same ground and pointlessly being like, oh well, I've done this before.
Yeah.
So they changed up the villages quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, Lurelin village was just a wreck because it'd been overtaken by pirates.
That is one of my favourite parts of the game. Where you have to like stealth. You don't have to, but you like go into there and like basically kill all these pirates. I thought it was really cool.
And then Hateno or Hateno, however you pronounce it, that was quite different all in the sense that there was all these like new fashion people compared to like the old, was it like farmers kind of ways, and there was like this kind of conflict between old and new, and the whole quest relating around that was really fun. I really enjoyed that, and that completely changed my perspective of that area. Yeah. And then Kakariko, on the basis of it, looked the same, but then you had all of the ruins that were
ring
all around,
ruins,
the ring ruins, and you had to do the quest around that. So there was a lot of different quests woven into how the towns or villages, whatever, like how they had changed. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then, there were things that were just slightly different. There was still the stables and things, and like the fairies.
Yeah.
Things like that. But it was... The shrines were in different places and they were different, and there was loads of cool stuff to discover, and it didn't have the same wow factor as Breath of the Wild because you weren't seeing the whole world for the first time.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild was like, oh my god, what have Nintendo created? And you're wandering around and you can just like climb anything and glide off anything. But it was still so fun to be in this world again. And the fact that 125 hours later, I wasn't fed up of like being in that world that I'd already been in twice before because I've played Breath of the Wild twice all the way through. Proves that there was like that it was still amazing to be there, and there was so much to explore.
I definitely like out of the three, the underground, the Hyrule field essentially, and the Hyrule, and then the sky. Like I still think exploring Hyrule was my favourite thing, and I think that was partly because it was like, while the landmass was pretty much the same, the things you'd come across, the people you'd meet, the mini games, whatever it was that was going on, it was quite like, you know, I liked that familiarity. Like I wouldn't want this again. Let me make this very clear.
Yeah.
If Nintendo used the map again, I'd be like, I'm done.
I agree. I think they've exhausted this now. I think that I'm really glad they made this game, but you have to do something different now, and they will. I don't think they. No. I think they know that they've got other things they want to do now.
It was like, don't get me wrong, like I enjoyed getting around. Like I still do what I normally do. Like I for the most part just run around. Like you've got the horses, you've got the vehicles you can make and stuff. But like I had a good time. You know, there was like, you obviously had like cave systems now. You had new enemy types, new people to see. So there was a lot of stuff there. I mean, the thing that probably, which was most interesting to me, the more I think about it, was that I really liked the fact with Breath of the Wild you had guardians, sometimes in the weirdest places, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, and then they always had that threat. In this game, you don't have guardians, but you do have something that made me jump the first time, which is the hand enemies, which we'll get onto probably more later, but like they would just come out of nowhere. You'd be like, nice open area.
Oh yeah,
you know the hand enemies that come out the ground.
Yeah.
So like you'd be in.
They're so fast as well. Yeah. And you're just like, shit, I can't get away from this.
So you'd be in like, you could be exploring, like there might not be any enemies around, just a nice serene area. You're like climbing some rocks, or just like look, you found like an old smashed up building, and this thing would pop out the ground, and that would suddenly be like, oh shit, I need to get out. I need to get away now. And that was really interesting to me because like with Guardians, it's like you could see them from afar. You're like, right, there's guardians there, or there's broken guardians, they might come alive. In this, you don't have that. You'd be like, oh, this seems normal, and suddenly this fucking thing appears.
Yeah.
Which made it had this weird tension, which wasn't always there because you might never find one because of where they are on the map. You might always miss them. But I really liked that sometimes I was doing something super, just exploring an area, and suddenly you're like, why is the music changed? Like, why is the sky gone all funny colour?
Yeah,
like, oh shit. And I think that really helped with my exploration of Hyrule. It's like, oh, I'm seeing new stuff all the time, and I'm never really safe. Which is weird, because that's kind of the same. Like, that was still there in Breath of the Wild, but I think you had the ability to see stuff, whereas now you've got an enemy that doesn't spawn until you get close to it.
Yeah.
You know, which was kind of interesting. But like, I really liked how things had changed, like with the cities. I really like how Tarry Town changed. Like, much bigger, it's been built out.
That was really cool, yeah.
You've got like the fact that this kid's grown up. You've got the area behind where they're doing like the racing and all the stuff's falling down.
I loved the music in Tarry Town as well.
Yeah, like a mixture of all of the tracks and stuff. I really liked revisiting these places, seeing the same characters where they're a bit more grown up, you know. For me, exploring just the land part of Hyrule was a lot of fun. Like, I really, really liked it.
I really liked the addition of the caves. I thought they were great. They put shrines in there. You had the bubble gems to get from the little creature things, and you could get so much, like a lot of like stones, you know, like rubies and diamonds and things.
Like lights in there, and you had hobgoblin.
There was a lot of loot to get in there and enemies to kill, and I didn't really get fed up of doing the caves. And if I did, then I didn't. You know, that was it. But I didn't mind. And then, other things like the tears as well. Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I loved like coming across a geoglyph and just being like,
where is it?
Because in Breath of the Wild, you had to find the memory from a photo.
Yeah.
And it was like, where the hell is that? There would be some trees somewhere, and it'd be like,
yeah.
how am I going to find that? And some of them you just had to be like, okay, well, if I see a glowing bit of grass, then just run towards that. But this, you had a bit more. We had quite a bit more
to work with,
and it was like, okay, I can see a geoglyph. I'm going to go over there, and then I just have to find the little pool, and then I found that really fun to do. And it was even more accessible if you view it from the sky, because then you can see all the geoglyphs and just be like, it's almost too easy, but it didn't matter because I really enjoyed getting them, and then the little clips that went with them were great. So.
How many times did you you see a geoglyph from afar and you're like, oh yeah, it's fine, and you get there and you're like, oh my god, this thing is fucking massive.
Yeah. You think, oh yeah, I'll just go to I'll just walk around it and I'll find it. And then some of them, I thought I'd walked around the whole thing and I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell? Where is it?
The sword or / dagger that's on there, right? That one doesn't look that big, but
No.
as soon as you get there, you're like, oh my god, look how much landmass it covers.
It's like across a whole bit of cliff or something.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Kind of nearish forest, if I remember rightly. But so I really enjoyed the searching the geoglyphs for the tiers. I thought that was cool. And I mentioned the caves. And then something else that's different that I wanted to mention was the towers. So obviously, in Breath of the Wild, you climb to the top of them, and then you can glide from there.
Yeah.
This one, you often in Tears of Kingdom, you often had a challenge to get into the tower. You didn't have to get to the top of it, it was just getting in there. You might have to use ascend to get up from underneath or something, or help someone power it or something like that, and then you get flung up into the air, so you go a lot higher than you would have done, and that was obviously the way of getting to the Sky Islands and stuff. But also, as well as that, wasn't just about Sky Islands. You could then traverse the map,
glide around.
You could glide in Breath of the Wild to a certain point, but if you're being flung up into the air and gliding from there, you're going to make it even further along the map. And the kind of scope that gave you for traversing the map was really good. I liked that they changed that slightly.
Yeah, I think that was a good. I think that's a really good change and made sense. I went round and did most of the. I think it was 2 that I left, which were hot areas for the longest time. But I did like the fact that as soon as you shot up a tower, you could just be like, "There's a shrine, there's a shrine, there's a shrine." You could ping them all, and then you could do it, or you could be like, "There's a geoglyph, I'll go and do that."
Just seeing the green swells and just being, there's a shrine.
Yeah, for sure. No, I did like the tower change. I think the tower change is one of the better ones. And I don't know. There's something about doing towers in that game. I loved it in Breath of the Wild, where it was I like the fact that they are a little bit of a challenge. I will say I preferred the challenges in Breath of the Wild of trying to unlock the towers to this one, because some of them are a little bit convoluted. I forgot about Ascend very early on, and if you're not thinking about it, you're like, how the fuck do I get into this tower? Once you start to remember it, it does make sense. But I definitely think early on, if you're doing the towers, that they were. I don't think they were meant to be more challenging. Just to me, they felt more challenging because I wasn't thinking of how do I get into this tower? I was thinking, there must be a way at the top or from the side or something, not actually through the bottom. Yeah. Which is a great way of reminding you have a tool that you can bust through. You
need to use this.
Yeah.
You're just getting your brain thinking about the tools you have. Which is both games done very well. I've just remembered about the wells as well.
Oh, the wells,
going down the wells. So that's similar to going to the caves in terms of what's down them is usually similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a cool little addition.
Yeah.
They're mostly, or a lot of them are in by stables.
Stuff like that.
Some of them are in the towns and things.
Yeah.
But I think when you said about not remembering that you had ascend to get into a tower, I think the first well I went down, I got in there and then I was like, how do I get out? And I just had a while of thinking, and I was like, oh wait, I've got that ability, haven't I? It's it's just that early phase of forgetting about the tools that you've got.
Yeah. 100%. Anything else to say about the ground before we talk about the dark under?
I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll probably touch on
Yeah,
other
we'll come back to
things.
stuff on that. So the last part of this game, which they didn't really advertise, I think it was actually a little bit leaked if you were keeping up with it, but most people didn't know going in that there is a whole underground section, the caverns, which the first time I went down one, I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And you're like, what? But essentially what the caverns are, they are like a flip side of the above ground. So if there's a river on the surface, it's like a full-on rock down beneath, and it's the same size map, and the whole point of it going down there is mainly to collect zonite and essentially find, like, there's better resources, better weapons, unrusted weapons down there. There's just more of the rocks and minerals. Like, it's an area that's like risk reward. That's the whole point of it. You go down there, you find really rare stuff, you find extra costumes, but at the case of like your health, if you get gloomed, doesn't come back until you either find a light route or you go up above ground.
Yeah.
And the enemies are just much tougher. And there's a couple of enemy types down there, or at least one enemy type down there that is never on the surface.
Frogs.
Yeah. So which are bloody annoying, but they're not that difficult to deal with, but they are annoying. And it's a very eerie area. Every time I went down there, it would creep me out. I was like, whoa.
The music was really weird. It had this kind of like weird, like, wow.
You have the trombone
just
thing.
Yeah.
And then you'd like it, almost like everything would echo. That was kind of what was cool about it. And you can go around and get the light roots, which are essentially the bottom of a shrine. So wherever you found a light root, there would be a shrine on the map and up on the surface, and vice versa. And they would help illuminate the area. Or you could collect a ton of these flowers that bloom flowers, what they call, and they could help you light up an area temporarily.
Bright blooms,
What was your experience then with the caverns?
So I thought this was a great idea. Like, I remember messaging my mate and saying, I'm 40 hours into Tears of the Kingdom and I've just gone into the depths for the first time. So I didn't actually go down there for ages. I didn't really...
I assume you saw like the holes.
Yeah. I saw the chasm. I came across a chasm, but I was just like, am I meant to avoid that? It was early game and I didn't know what I was doing. And then I went down there and I was like, wait a minute, there's a whole nother map to this game. Like, I'd done some Sky stuff and I was like, there's a whole like underground section. So I'm sure I went down there for the first time like way later than most people did. But just going down there, I was just like, this is crazy. This is the whole of Hyrule but underground. And there's some good quests down there. There's a lot of like loot down there. I like how there's like treasure maps in the sky.
Yes.
That are for the treasure underground, and it marks an X on the spot. I did some of them. I still had some X's on there because I wasn't crazy bothered about exploring the whole thing. But I did do some of them. The new enemy types down there, the frogs, and then the smaller little frog things,
little frog things.
Were cool. Just seeing like new bits. And I really liked the light routes. So I did some of them and I was like, okay, so these are kind of fast travel points or waypoints, and they light up the area and it makes it easy. And it wasn't until I had done a few of them that I realised, oh, wait a minute, they're directly below each ground shrine. And then I realised the significance of that is that if you haven't done the shrine above, you can use these
tag it,
as a way of finding the shrines in the overworld, which is cool. Also I then a little bit later realised that the names of the light routes are the names of the corresponding shrine backwards. Which I thought was really cool.
Typical Nintendo, that is.
And I like messaged my mate about it, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't realise that. That's really cool." I really like the kind of light route thing and lighting up the area and being like, "Oh, now I can see around and stuff." The thing I would say is that I didn't feel the need to explore like a huge amount of the depths. I did probably 30 something light routes out of 120.
I did
which is like not many at all. And maybe I should have done a bit more of the depths and I would have found more stuff. But there were periods where I would come up to a lake where there was no light. And I would be swimming around and I wouldn't know where the edge was and I drowned. or I'd come up to the bit underneath Death Mountain.
Yeah.
Hadn't done Death Mountain yet. Didn't have any fireproof clothing, and couldn't do that bit.
Yeah.
So there were areas where I was just like, I won't bother doing that.
Yeah.
And so perhaps I should have done a bit more, but I did find that there wasn't necessarily enough new stuff to keep me exploring down there. But then again, I wouldn't expect there to be crazy amounts of. I wouldn't expect there to be towns or cities under there, because that doesn't make sense for a cavernous area.
No.
But I did think the concept overall, and just having 3 maps, was just like, whoa, this is so expansive and really cool. And I like the light routes and stuff. Yeah,
so the whole like depths is really interesting, because like there's boss refights down there. There's the underground labyrinths. There's the whole dungeon for Death Mountain. There's another dungeon as well. There's the whole thing with the Yiga, which is like a whole story.
I started that and I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
And I wish I had. I probably should have finished that quest. But yeah.
I don't know where it goes, but like there's that. There's like the Colosseums that you can fight in that will unlock like armor and things like that. There is stuff to do down there though, but I will say like it did become, because there's so many, it does become a little bit of a slog trying to get all the light routes. Some of them are in really annoying places. I think one of the coolest things is actually seeing the dragons fly down under there and back up and stuff.
Really
and I was
cool.
like, what?
Yeah, that was so cool. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go underground now. And then you see one come out as well. It's like,
The weirdest thing to me, and this might just be because I just happened to I only ran into like 1 or 2 down there. Again, those hand enemies that are made of gloom, I was expecting them to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Because it was so dark, I was like, well, that's quite creepy. They're going to jump out. I maybe found like 3 total.
Yeah.
3 total down there, and I'm sure there's more of them. But I thought they were like going to be a lot more. But then I was like, well, maybe if you use them on the overground and you have a couple down there, it's a bit more like, a bit jumpy kind of thing.
Considering how much gloom there was down there, you'd expect there to be more. But then if there was more, that area would be so difficult. You'd just be running away from them the whole time.
Which is fair enough, because there's like, for example, on the overworld, on the right hand side of the map, there's like 3 bits of rock that are connected by bridges, and on the end of one of them, spoilers, is a hidden way down to the depths, which you can't get to from anywhere else down there. And when you go through that area, it unlocks, because there was a cross on the map. I went into this room and there's this big large chamber at the end of it. Nothing in there, nothing except for this chest. And I was like, I know what you're up to, game. I know what's going to happen here. And I opened the chest. Did that, got the item. As soon as you see that, one of these hand things spawned. But the one thing, a little bit off topic, but the game lets you fast travel no matter how much danger you're in.
Yeah. That's the same with Breath of the Wild. You can just fast travel out of boss fights.
Yeah, and it's like, it's kind of like
you could be drowning in the water, and it's like
well, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I like the depths as a concept. I do think it's a little bit. You don't really need to go down there. It's mainly for getting Zonite and better quality weapons. Those are the 2 main reasons.
Yeah.
And obviously like gems and stuff to sell. But it comes a point where I just got it, because it's all the same. It's all the same colour, and it does kind of be like, I'm going fucking mad.
It's a bit repetitive, I would say that. But then I think the game expects you to spend the majority of your time in the overworld, not in the sky.
You
or
dive
the
down
depths.
there, get a few bits.
You probably spend more time in the sky than you do in the depths. The game doesn't want to keep you down there.
No.
It's just there's some cool stuff in there, but come out of it when you're ready to get back to the overworld, do some other stuff.
Yeah, it is very like I do it in bursts. I would do like, I'm gonna do like 4 or 5 light routes, and I'm gonna come back up, and then I'm gonna do 4 or 5 more. Whatever. I would kind of like mix my time between doing some stuff in the air, overworld, and that. But when you actually break it down, like the reasons to go down there, it's like, it's fun in short bursts, but if you're down there a long time, it is like madness. Just like, where am I going? What am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, I tried fighting a corrupted Lionel down there. What a mistake that was. like Lionel's already really hard to deal with. Like, when they're corrupted, it's like, oh god. But yeah, that's, the majority of the world, I guess. There's so much stuff going in this world. So, any final thoughts on the underground depths before we move on to anything else?
No, I think we've covered the world pretty well. Yeah.
All right. What do you reckon? Should we talk about
abilities?
Yes, abilities.
Yeah.
Off the bat, before we get into what they all do, what was your favourite one?
That's tough because there's ones that are like the most used. There's one that's like the most used or useful that you just couldn't do before, and then there's other stuff that's like, because Ultra Hand you're just gonna use all the time.
Yeah.
But then it's not. You just get used to it.
Yeah.
I think.
Weirdly enough, on this radial menu, it includes the camera, the map, and amiibo, which you just get as other powers. But
I think Fuse is just so cool. I think
Fuse is
just
a lot
the
of fun,
fact that you can just make weapons out of anything. They really dealt with the weapon durability aspect well with that. It's like, oh, this weapon's breaking. Let's
stick a rock on
it. Like whack a enemy like Lizalfos horn or something on it. I mostly used enemy parts because they had the highest fuse attack power on them.
The goblins.
But yeah, it's difficult to have a definitive favourite ability. But I guess maybe I'd go with Fuse. What about you?
Probably Ascend, because once you realise how useful it is, that you can get around so much. I like movement abilities.
I was thinking Ascend. I found it like so useful.
Yeah, Ascend. Like, you can get places that you shouldn't be able to get with Ascend, and I kind of like that. I do really like Recall as well, because that is some fucking... once you've figured out Recall, you could do some really fun stuff with it. But I mean, I liked all of the abilities. I never really used auto build. It's cool that it was there because it sped up the process, but you know, I like the fact that you had the ability with Ultra Hand. You could like make stuff. Ascend was just like a way of getting around, like up and out of things, which was really, really useful. Obviously Recall was a really cool like rewind ability, and that's when you start messing around with time, especially in the shrines, super fun. And then Fuse, you could just do some dumb stuff with it, and I think that's kind of like, you know, I've got a spear, I'm going to stick another spear on it, so you've got this ridiculously long weapon that's going to break very quickly. Or you could do stuff like put a springy mushroom on like a weapon, you twat someone and they just go flying off.
Bouncy stick or something. I remember making one of those for the first time, and the enemies just absolutely fly miles. It's so much fun. I
think they did a good job improving them. I will say I did miss bombs, because there are no bombs in this unless you have the arrows, whatever they're called, the flower bombs.
You get the bomb flowers, yeah.
That's what I meant. So you get those, but you don't get like the fact that you could summon a bomb at will in Breath of the Wild.
You
and
can
I
still get them out and throw them.
Yeah,
and then there's the Zonai bombs as well.
Yeah, true, but they're not like having the ability to just roll a bomb down a hill and just blow it up on some people was always, you know, kind of fun.
Yeah.
But out of all the abilities, these are significantly better. They are more creative. Like Cryo is like summon some ice or some water. That was in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, that was only for very specific.
But Magnesis is basically the same as Ultra Hand in this one. It's not metal objects.
Ultra Hand is like expanding on that. Magnesis was like just for metal things. Ultra Hand was like, okay, you can move anything and then attach it to anything else, and the amount of stuff you could do with that was ridiculous.
What was like something with Ultra Hand? What was something you like making? Like, or do you have like a go-to thing you'd make with certain parts, or you just like?
It was just. Mostly just like the generic stuff, like making some kind of like boat with fans on it, or getting one of the wing things and getting a steering stick and the fans, and then just steering it around the air and stuff, which is all of the most simple stuff. But I just liked how you had to use it for some of the shrines and some of the videos online. I mean, if you're listening to this and you've not looked up some of the crazy vehicles and builds you can do, go on YouTube and look it up, because some of the 100%. Stuff on this is absolutely mental. The imagination that some people have is crazy. So yeah, just the amount of stuff you can make with Ultra Hand is nuts.
100%.
You can really, because there's so many different Zonai like items
Yeah.
that you get out of like the dispensers and stuff. I started out getting like cooking pots and fans and all of the most basic stuff, and I was like, okay, so there's bits and pieces, and then I just kept getting more and more stuff, and I was like, there's so many different items, and the way that you can combine these items is like, I mean, we could do a whole separate video on this if we wanted to. We're not gonna go into everything you could possibly do, but it was amazing. Fuse, you can just make the cool
springs
weapons
on springs. That was one of my favourites. You get so high from that,
and it was just really cool with the what you could do with a bow as well, because you can make items that you would have had from older Zelda games by fusing it with things. So you can make fire arrows by putting like those fire fruits on the end, or you can make shock arrows from using the shock fruits, or bomb arrows with the bombs, and
put key size on, and you get
and then you get the key size for the homing arrows, and then you get the key wings if you want to add distance. And I was like, this is so cool, like that's so creative. They just taken this like
every
next
resource
level.
You could either equip it to your weapon, your bow, or your shield, and it would probably do something.
It made me more inclined to fight bokoblin and moblins in camps. In Breath of the Wild, I'd sometimes find myself just avoiding them because I was like, I can't be bothered to deal with that.
Yeah.
But if I got those resources from enemies, I'd be like, well, I've got more use for them now. Like, other than not just cooking elixirs, but I can attach them to my arrows, or I can, like...
mess people up.
Yeah, like, I do all sorts. So that was really awesome. Ascend was just so useful, getting out of caves. You do a shrine down a cave, and then you're like, well, I'm not going to walk back to the start. Like, just get out of there.
Yeah.
And then you could, there was just, like you said, there were certain points where you just feel like you're breaking the game a bit. You're just like, okay, I'm just going to get out of here.
You're like, screw you, game. It never, ever broke. I can't believe, like, what Ascend does.
I know, You could, there was so much freedom with it. There was so many places you could use it. And it's just so, obviously there's a height limit on it, so you can't do it if the ceiling's too high. But there's still a lot you can use it for. And then recall was awesome. The way that recall was used in the shrines was great. Some of the puzzles were so cool, one of the recall ones. I mean, so were some of the like Ultra Hand and stuff, but and Ascend. But also just using it, like you can use it against the flux enemies when they fire all those. They'll throw like 5 of those cubes at you, and he's like in the sky as like a flat thing, and you use it on one of the cubes and get on it, and then it goes back to him so that you can jump on him and then twat the... That was so cool. And also, the other thing was like the rocks falling from the sky. Like, it land next to you, and then just get on it and press recall, and then it will take you up to the sky, and then you could go up to like an island or
I never
fly
thought
around.
About doing that. So you're about the flux guys, you like get on the brick and recall it. I never did that.
Oh really? I didn't know what the other way of doing that was. So it takes you up to the top bit where the
cube
thing
is,
was. You had to get
so
it.
I would always just whip out a spring, jump on a spring, whack it, fly off, and land on it, because I didn't even consider recall.
Yeah, you kind of avoid it, wait for it to stop.
Yeah.
Jump, like hit recall and jump on it, and then it just takes you up there, and then you when you get up, it kind of flings you up a little bit, and then you just kind of glide onto him and then just smack it. Yeah. There
you go. See, like that's the thing with this game.
Like, and there's probably things you did that I didn't think about, like with the abilities as well.
Like I don't know if you might have found this out. Like if you're fighting a stone Talos, you can ascend through it.
No, well, that's a good example.
Yeah. So I would. We'll get on to them in a bit, but you could run up to a stone Talos, hit ascend, and get on top of it, avoid its attack, and then start wailing on them.
Yeah, that's really handy, because I was like struggling to like aim my arrows at it, or I'd try and climb it, but you'd suddenly like turn around and I'd fly off it or something.
Yeah, for sure. I think the abilities and what they open up in this game is a lot of possibilities, and it's kind of nuts. Like you can use Ultra Hand to create contraptions to help you fight things, or you can use Ascend to like cheat a Talos and get on top of it, or you can use Recall on those ones to get on there. Like they all. The game lets you do all these things that make sense. If it makes sense in your head, it probably makes sense in the game, and I think that goes to show how powerful these abilities are, because like on the surface you're just like, oh, this does this, this does this, this does this, but then it's sort of like, it's almost, you have those moments where you're like, oh my god, like mind-blowing moments. You're like, I didn't even think I could do this, and then you can. And
there were those videos on Breath of the Wild on YouTube that were like, such and such number of things that you didn't realise you could do in Breath of the Wild, and then they'd make another one, even more stuff they discovered, and you thought that you had a lot of freedom in Breath of the Wild, and then you've got these abilities, and you're like, holy crap, they've taken the creativity to the extreme, and the people that love crafting out there are having a field day because the stuff you can build and make is insane.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
We've talked about the abilities. I was going to talk about shrines, but it did remind me that you do get helpers in this game, in the form of like the newer sages, and they're like spirits that are with you.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what one you think about that as a mechanic, because that made, for me, I was like, you're not really alone anymore. You've always got like someone who's got your back. You can turn them off, but they are with you. And sort of how you found using them, really. Did you think it was a cool idea, or like what was your thoughts on having them with you?
So in Breath of the Wild you had like Mipha's Grace, and you had, I can't remember the name of all of them. Rivali's Gale, which was really helpful. Yeah, that was one of the most useful because you could just like go upwards very quickly, and you didn't have to climb so much.
Was one of them, wasn't it?
You had the Daruk shield thing, and then you had the lightning attack.
I can't remember a name, but yeah.
So in this you've got more sort of companions that are there with you the whole time. I didn't think their powers were as significant as the ones in Breath of the Wild. I thought the flying one you get from the Wind Temple was useful, like it would push you along a bit.
Yeah, you got more momentum in a direction.
I liked how you got the Sage's Wills that allowed you to upgrade the abilities.
Yeah.
But I only got enough Sage's Wills to upgrade one thing.
Which one did you upgrade?
I upgraded the flying one because that was the one I used the most.
Oh my god, the most disappointing thing about that is it doesn't do anything with the wind, it just makes him do more damage. And I was like...
That's what I thought. I was like, I'm not going any further, am I?
No. And then it says, oh, he now does more damage. I'm like, I don't need damage.
I see. I didn't think I was going any further, and I didn't use that to attack. So that did nothing then for me.
Yeah, it's... incredibly annoying.
But I did find that useful. Like, I think if I didn't have that, I would have struggled to get to like one of the sky labyrinths and some of the sky stuff.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
I didn't have to use as much stamina.
Yeah.
So that was good, but and then you had Daruk's thing, and not Daruk's thing.
Yonabu, what was his name?
It was Daruk in Breath of the Wild, but you had the Goron thing. And that was handy because I wouldn't have to use bombs to blow up rocks.
Or waste weapons to smash.
Or like use rock hammers or anything. Yeah. I could just use that. So that was very handy. I should have used that more for attacking. But I didn't.
Yeah,
I just used it to like break through things. You had the lightning attack thing.
Oh, that was the worst.
I didn't actually use that really, except when you kind of had to use it in Gerudo Town.
Yeah, oh my god.
To get rid of all the Gibdos and things.
Yeah.
And then the other one
Sidon's water shield.
I didn't use that.
So that is useful, but I forgot about it.
So I kind of forgot about it. But it does give you a shield, but I didn't feel the need to have the water attack.
Yeah, you like launch the water out.
And then you've got the construct thing, which I only used while I was doing that mission. But I got it so near the end, I didn't have time to then kind of. It was a cool thing, though. Yeah. You get on the back of the thing and you could wield different weapons.
And you could go for gloom on it, which was super useful.
Yes, I should have used it for that. So I think my experience of these was that I didn't use them to their fullest extent.
Yeah.
Partly because I may have forgotten about them sometimes. Other times, I didn't feel the need to use them all the time.
How did you feel about trying to activate them? Because this is probably the only problem, was the fact that if you're in a tight space, sometimes they teleport away, sometimes they were there.
Sometimes I'd be trying to collect something off the ground and I'd accidentally use an ability. And I'm pretty sure anyone playing this game must have done that.
Yeah.
Like I would I go to collect something on the ground and I'd accidentally use the wind one and I'd blow it across the off a mountain and I'd be like, I was trying to get that sword and I've just made it travel halfway across the map.
I kept activating the lightning one and I'm like, no, I don't want this thing going across my screen. Cause if you don't
I kept doing that as well.
Yeah.
The thing with the Goron one is like it doesn't do it straight away, it just preps it, so that one didn't matter so much. So I think these abilities were slightly weaker than the ones from Breath of the Wild, but I think they intended that because they were kind of companions.
They were much more utility based.
Yeah,
because they can also fight in combat, which I will say the amount of times that the bird one would critical hit someone, so it would knock them over. Very useful.
The amount of times he would use arrows to I could be fighting a group of enemies and I'll be like, oh well, my companions will see to them and I'll fight a different one or something.
I did like in concept when you're fighting like a group of goblins or whatever, it was really useful because they would draw the aggro, and so you could focus on one person, especially if you're doing underground stuff where you just lose your heart. And I think the utility that they were trying to give made sense because being able to smash down boulders, be able to fly further and all that sort of stuff, it was useful. I just don't know if it was executed in the best way. I mean, they would have run out of buttons had they tried to put these on a controller. And I do like the fact you can turn them off, so you can make them go. I don't know why you would, because I was getting in combat a lot later on in the game. But it's a cool idea that probably needed a slightly... I almost think that you needed to hold a button down and then one of the face buttons would activate their ability. I think that would have helped massively.
It was handy. In a way, it was handy that they were there because you could walk up to them, but I did find I accidentally activated more than I intended to activate them.
100%.
But there were some cool abilities, but I think maybe they thought the ones in Breath of the Wild were a bit overpowered.
Yeah.
Like
Mipha's
Grace, just having a whole, just going straight back up to 20 whatever hearts you had. You get additional hearts as well.
Yeah.
And then like Rivali's Gale was like insanely useful, but yeah, I thought they were fine. I didn't have too many complaints about them.
All right, let's talk about something that I want to talk about. Let's talk about shrines.
Yes.
So shrines in Breath of the Wild really, really made me. That's one of the things I loved about the game, because they were the whole point of shrines, and the same with this game, is they are condensed puzzles. They're meant to be maybe 5 to 10 minutes of in these rooms figuring out puzzles that use specific things. And in Breath of the Wild, you had fairly decent puzzles. I think the ones in Tears of the Kingdom overall are better because of the abilities you have. But what was really cool was it was a nice way to break it up. Like you obviously gain the ability to upgrade your stamina and health from them, but it was a nice way, if you were doing other quests and stuff, just dive in and do 5-10 minutes of puzzling, or you might smash it, you might do it really quickly. So what was your overall experience with shrines, and then are there any that you really liked that stood out to you?
So the shrines are all, as with Breath of the Wild, are one of the most fun and exciting things to do in the game, I would say. Finding them, coming across one and being oh, I get to do a puzzle was I love that. And they were, I would say, overall better, you said, than the Breath of the Wild ones. Because I just loved using recall in them. I loved using ascend in them. It was just the way you had these using different abilities in them. And the puzzles were awesome. There were some where there would, how there's multiple stages. You'll do a first bit and then you'll do a second bit. There were a couple where there were some that had 2 stages, and I thought that they could have built on them a bit and added an extra stage.
Puzzle,
So I was a bit they could have built on that a bit, but I still like those ones. And there were other ones where they really did I was wow, they really have impressed me. Most of them were oh, that's really impressive. It's really difficult for me to remember how specific ones and how to describe them to you. There was one with you had to get this ball to a platform, and there were 2 other platforms going towards it, and you had to use recall to make. I like the ones where you had to slow down a ball to you had to recall a ball halfway up. To go back halfway up a slope so that it would fall slower, so that it went where you had to go to rather than skipping over where it had to go to. That kind of thing I enjoyed. The Jenga one was amazing.
I was going to bring that was one of my favourites. How did you solve it? Because I completely broke the puzzle.
I don't think I did it the way the game intended. I can't remember exactly what I did. Yeah. But I think, as with several other, a number of the other shrines, I think I cheesed it. And I'd say there's actually probably even more cheesing or variety of ways to complete these shrines as there was in Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild, there were definitely like ones where you're like, oh, there's different ways of doing this. Whereas this in Tears of the Kingdom, I was like, okay, I can think of there's probably like a handful or more of ways of doing this. There's like a lot of combinations of random. So I probably cheesed the Jenga one, and I'm trying to remember some of them. But there was one where there was this twisty tower thing. Some parts were going some way and some were going. You have to ascend, but you can't ascend. So you had to like recall one of them so that they lined up and then ascend through it. That was good. I thought that was really cool. There was one where there was like a ball. You had to get this ball down a slope to the bottom and then put it in the ball slot. But there was a hole at the bottom, so if you just put it in there, it would just go into the thing. But then there was another ball as well, but that one didn't fit on the slope. It would just fall between the railings, so you had to stick the two balls together. And then that would, when it got to the bottom, it prevented it from going down the hole at the bottom. I thought that was really cool.
There's a lot of those where you have to like glue things together to like get them across places, like with the carts and stuff. Or, like, going along rails and things.
There's a lot of ones where you had to like create a vehicle to go along rails, which is quite cool. I could go through many more, but those are a few. What I would say is that the combat ones were good.
They were a huge improvement. Like, don't get me wrong, I liked how they were in Breath of the Wild, but this time it was like, here's a scenario rather than here's an enemy to fight. Some of them, like, one of my favourite ones is called like Going with the Flow, and it's like there's water with some of the like the things on it, some of the robots on it that are going one way round, and then the next level of water they're going the other way around. And so you're trying to pick up on these like little raft things that are going around and trying to fight stuff. And that one was probably my favourite. That was probably one of the hardest ones actually.
That was really cool. So obviously in Breath of the Wild you had the minor, major, medium and major test of strength, something like that. And it was just one enemy in a room, just with different strengths. And it was fine. It was good in a way because you could come across a major one quite early on in the game, and you didn't know the attack patterns, and you'd be like, oh, this is tough. And you just come back, and then when you beefed up, you would come back and complete it, and that was fun. But it was just the same enemy. Whereas this one, it was there were a range of different kind of scenarios with different, like there'd be like water, or there'd be different like towers.
Blackness.
Sometimes it'd just be dark. And different enemy strengths, and they were equipped in different ways. Some of them had like flame weapons, and you just couldn't,
shock arrows.
They were just like flame throwing, and you couldn't get near them, or they were shock arrowing you and stuff. That was really cool. The only thing was that you always got stripped of every weapon. So even if you beefed up, you thought, oh, I want to beef up and come back. The only way that would help you is if you gained more hearts. You couldn't actually be like, oh, I'll get more armor and come back, because you don't get to use your armor. It just took
Eventide Island and just shoved it.
So there was a part of me that was like, oh, okay, are they kind of overusing the concept of Eventide Island? They're doing this for every combat shrine, like stripping you naked. But essentially, I don't mind that much because they were much more interesting than the combat shrines in Breath of the Wild. And then the puzzle shrines that were Rauru's Blessing had those as well, and some of those were really cool. But I'll let you speak about.
So I was just going to bring So I was just going to bring up like some of my favourite shrines. So obviously the Jenga one. One of my favourites was the low gravity car one, where you're in a car and it's like a massive racetrack, but and you're going low grav.
And you go between, like, you're jumping between different levels.
That was really, really cool. And there's also one that I thought was very creative, which is you go in a room, you hit a button, and it brings the floor up, And it took me ages to realise what was going on, but essentially, like, there were some... the floor would come up and there was, like, braziers on each one that you had to set on fire. But if you took off the button, they would go back in the hole. What you had to do is you had to pick up this candle, move
I
it,
remember that, yeah.
hit the button, hit recall, and it would set... That's how I did it. It was like, it would go back and do it. And that one was confusing to me because it was like...
Was that the one where there was a chest underneath where the button was?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one took me quite a while to figure out. Yeah.
Another one I really liked was the one which was like you have to put the ball in the right holes and the rings are on the ceiling, and if you don't look up, you won't get the answer to the puzzle. That was pretty fun. I don't know if you did that one.
No, if I remember that one.
Yeah, it's basically like you have like a bunch of holes on the ground. We have to put the balls in, like 3 of them.
Yeah.
And the rings are on the ceiling, which are the answer to the puzzle.
Yeah, I think that. I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, like that's, there's obviously ones we have to like fly across stuff, and there's ones with like a buoy that you put in the water and it shoots up and stuff. There was a lot of really, really good ones. So there's 2 things that are a little bit of a drawback. Was I think there was way too many Rari's Blessing ones. And I only say that because I basically did every single shrine. So when you do every single shrine, if you all the shrines that you find easily genuinely have a puzzle in them. Anytime you found a shrine that was like in a cave that you had to get to, or was in a sky island that you had to get to, like you'll grab the crystal to like set it up, that was usually a Rari's Blessing because the puzzle was activating the shrine. And near the end of the game, I'd obviously found a lot of the shrines that had the puzzles in, which I really liked, but I wasn't a fan of finding so many that were like, hey, good job, you activated the shrine. You go in there to do a puzzle and it's like, here you go, here's the, you just basically get given a reward. And I was like, they do play on those expectations because there's one Rari's Blessing that like suddenly flies back and then you have to like activate bridge.
Oh yeah, I did that.
That was really, really cool.
I was like, at least they put something in there.
Yeah. Like I didn't realise looking at it, I should have realised it was different. But and the other thing is like it's not a bad piece of music, the new shrine music, but my god, is it nowhere near as good as the old one.
Oh yeah, I agree with you there. So the old one was the perfect music for contemplating a puzzle.
Yes.
It was the perfect thinking music. And this one was still cool and atmospheric. It's still quite the little doom 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 doom. But it doesn't compare to the Breath of the Wild one.
It doesn't have the same. It's like I forgot like a lot of the time the music that was playing in the dungeon shrines here. Yeah. Whereas the old one, it kind of was its own like character because it stuck out. As soon as you walked in, you got that burn like noise. Yeah. And it would build as time would go on. And I kind of liked that, like, and I really missed it. I'm not gonna lie, like they reused a lot of music in this game, and I know it's different technologies. That was Sheikah. This is Zonite. What are they called? Is it not Zonite? Yeah, Zonite. And yeah, I just kind of like really missed it because it was its own character.
The music in these shrines was almost too minimalist. Yeah, sometimes
it just wasn't
like. But you wouldn't want anything too punchy or dramatic. But I felt like Breath of the Wild was perfect, and this was slightly too minutes. But I didn't mind too much.
It wasn't bad. I remember doing those shrines, and any of the ones you stood there for a while, or you're looking at, and then that's playing, and it's like, I'm like figuring these puzzles out and doing stuff, and it really, really worked. And that was probably out of all the bits of music I wanted to return, that would have been the one for me. But it's a minor gripe, okay? It didn't affect the actual shrines themselves. There were some awesomely creative ones, the ones I've just said. And overall, I really liked them. And I going on to a bigger thing, I think I've realised with Zelda, I'm not a fan of dungeons. I am a fan of shrines. I like the fact that the shrines themselves are, like I said, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes max of you trying to do a secluded puzzle in a very different room, and you have limited things that you can do. I much prefer that to full-on dungeons, which we'll get to dungeons when we get there, but I've realised that I like that short, quick puzzle or trying to figure something out. They felt very creative and clever. Yeah. Whereas dungeons overall, sometimes they just feel they can go on for maybe an hour, they can go on for quite a long time, and that might be getting to the dungeon, doing the boss kind of thing, whereas this is like, hey, you've come to do this one thing, these are the parameters that we've set, figure it out. And I like that. I think that works really well with my brain.
Yeah. So there's 152 shrines in the game. You did all of them.
Yeah.
I did 116.
Yeah.
And maybe I might go back and do a few more, possibly. But I was pretty happy with what I'd done. I'd done, obviously, that's most of the overworld ones and quite a lot of the sky ones. And yeah, there's a lot there, and it sounds like a lot of the ones I've missed were probably Rauru's Blessing. I think I probably did most of the puzzle and shrine combat ones. I did like the green swirl thing because I could see them from the sky easier, and it was like, oh wow, I can see them. And I didn't get the sensor until towards the end of the game. I didn't do that quest, but I didn't miss it too much because you had the light routes, which helped, and you could see the green swirls easily. But it was helpful for finding ones that were underground that you wouldn't be able to find.
Bloody hell. I will say some of the ones that you find that are in caves and stuff, like, they are just laborious. Like some of the last few that I did, I just looked them up because I couldn't find the entrance to the cave. And obviously you can't descend, so you can't just go where it is and drop on it. But
I had one of those, and I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to bother looking up. I'm going to do something else. And that was my
which is 100%, which is totally fine. Like you do get something for doing all of the shrines. I don't know if it's actually any good. I honestly couldn't tell you, but like, it's just one of those things. Like, you don't need to. Like, don't do what I did. Same with the light routes. You don't need to. You get something for doing it, but you don't need to. Just do what you enjoy. I guess moving on from that, then going on from shrines, let's talk about the dungeons, because as someone who's not the biggest fan of traditional Zelda dungeons, I absolutely loved the divine beasts. They were straightforward. They were like, hey, you have one ability to like adjust the animal, and you just got to find like 5 points, and you do a boss. And I liked all the bosses. Here they tried to go with a bit more of a traditional look and feel to them.
Yeah.
What is your favourite one, and what is your least favourite one?
So I probably think the Lightning Temple was my favourite in the sense that there was some cool mirror stuff. There were like little rooms with like chests behind them. Yeah. And it looked like an actual temple. Yeah. Like you might get in a classic Zelda game. My least favourite was probably the Wind Temple. The one in the sky. I loved getting there. I thought bouncing on all the ships to get up to the stormy. So high. You was going higher and higher and higher, and I was like, this is so epic. The journey there was fantastic, but I didn't find the boat was kind of cool, but I didn't find it that interesting getting around. Whereas when I went to, but then again, the water temple was a bit odd. I don't know. So probably lightning versus wind least, but I felt overall I like the fact that they'd kind of tapped into a slightly more traditional feel, but I did feel like if they're going to do that, it needs to live up to some classic dungeons from I don't know, like Ocarina or Twilight Princess or something like that. And it didn't have like, you know, different rooms where you had to get the keys by defeating enemies or like get the map or whatever. Well, you had a map, but you didn't have to get it out. You didn't have to get a compass or it didn't have that traditional Zelda feel. So I'm kind of a bit torn between like whether I just like prefer these over the Breath of the Wild ones, because I do like the idea of going back to traditional dungeons, but you can do them in any order. Yeah. But I liked how you could manipulate the divine beasts, and I particularly liked the elephant in the divine beast. The bird was pretty cool. The camel was cool. I think the salamander thing on Death Mountain was quite cool. So I think overall, I quite enjoyed them. But maybe they're a bit of a step down from the Breath of the Wild ones overall. But I did enjoy them. I got to the Fire Temple. But I did that before Lightning, and I was like, okay, this actually looks like a it actually feels like a dungeon. Like I'm underground, like, and the wind and water didn't feel like that. I have very mixed feelings on these. I liked getting to the Wind Temple and getting to the Water Temple. They were actually getting there
were awesome fun. Really enjoyed that. The fire temple I didn't mind, but the whole minecart mechanic, it was fun, but in the end I ended up choosing a lot.
I definitely did that in the wrong order, and then that probably took me longer than it should have done. I don't think I did it in the order the game intended me to do it in.
I kind of get like, the problem is each of the dungeons was like, again, go to the thing, move around, activate 5 whatever or 4 whatever, which, you know, once you've done it a couple of times, you're just like, oh, please just get past it. I didn't like the lightning temple that much. Like, I liked the idea of it, but I think the boss, which we'll get onto in a minute, really, really sucks. So
that's interesting, because I enjoyed that boss.
Really? I think it's because...
Actually, I thought all of the bosses, the water temple was like not that interesting boss, but the other ones I thought were all pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, they all have like interesting mechanics. I mean, there's also the spirit temple, which I actually did like the idea that you have to build the construct. Way more interesting than
the construct factory, then you go to do the boxing match.
Yeah, which is one of my favorite.
That
bosses.
was really cool.
Yeah,
I didn't even mention that. I was only thinking about the regional phenomena.
But
the construct factory was cool. I really enjoyed that.
That was just a lot more creative.
Yeah.
Because you have to, each area there's a different thing, you know, like having to get things through the area and stuff like that. Was technically or did you do all of Hyrule Castle and fight the boss there?
Well, as in when you do Phantom Ganon.
Yeah. Okay. So technically Hyrule Castle's also, it's not like a normal dungeon, it's mainly like a boss that you go through an area and you do a boss. I think overall the wind and water one of my favourites in just terms of getting there. All of them were very much the same, of just like activate these things, and apart from the spirit one, which I actually thought was genuinely like really fun, and that was it was a fun experience into a fun boss fight, which, you know, I think the Divine Beasts were better overall. I preferred them. I don't think these were bad, but they're not memorable. Or at least they're not memorable for the right reasons. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about them. I was kind of like meh, apart from the spirit.
I did enjoy them. I think if they were in any other game, I'd be like, oh, this is great fun. But I'm just comparing it to other Zeldas. I did really enjoy them for the most part. I thought the water thing had some cool like little puzzles of like, how to solve them. I thought that the Wind Temple boss was really cool. That was the first one I did. There was just something about like diving down from the sky to break the ice, which I just thought was really fun.
That boss, I think, is one of the most creative ones. Yeah,
and then, as you asked me earlier, I just didn't think about the construct factory, but actually that boss was really fun. Like hitting against the walls of the thing. That was really good. It was kind of hit and miss for me, I guess. Like I did really enjoy some of the bosses and some of the dungeons, but there were parts of some of the dungeons where I was just like, you could have done more with this. Like this could have been. There were creative ideas in there.
Yeah.
But there was some elements where there were kind of missed opportunities for creativity.
For sure. All right, and next question. Excluding Ganondorf, because that's like the final fight. Out of all the bosses, what was your favourite and what was your least favourite? So you've got Queen Gibdo, you've got Goma, you've got I don't know what the flying thing was called in the Wind Temple, and then you had an Octorok thing that turns into like a shark, and you also had the malfunction construct, and Phantom Ganon. So those are the boss fights that you do. I
loved seeing Phantom Ganon come back. It wasn't as interesting as like him coming out of paintings in Ocarina of Time, but it was still cool that he came back. I was like, that's awesome. I think probably my least favourite would be the water one.
I quite like that, but go on.
It was fine, but it was just like I just had to like get the sludge off him with the water and then just attack him. Yeah. And he was kind of like running around. It was almost like a Splatoon boss or something.
Yeah, it was very much the Splatoon boss.
Not that I played that game, but I've seen clips and it looked very similar.
Very much like that.
Favourite... yeah, that's difficult. There was something epic about the wind one, even though the boss itself like. But maybe I'd go with. Are we including the final Ganon fight?
No. Excluding that, because that's on its own. We'll
Sorry,
get to that.
you already said excluding.
But Goma, Phantom Ganon, Octorok, Queen Gibdo, and the wind thing. I can't remember what it's called.
You know what? I really like Queen Gibdo. I know you didn't like it. I was choosing between that and the construct one, the boxing fight, because that was really cool. But I just thought that Queen Gibdo one was the most challenging for me. Yeah, it was the one that I found the hardest, and therefore, and I just like the fact that they sent out like the smaller Gibdos as like their little and I just found it. Yeah, I found that I thought the Fire Temple one was quite cool, but I found it really easy. Yeah, I didn't really lose any health at all. I thought it was awesome that Goma came back. I was like, oh my god,
cool to see Goma, wasn't it?
Goma, that's amazing. But the fight was good, but yeah, I just liked the fact that the Gibdo one was even more challenging. So
for me, my favourite boss fight was probably the construct one. We had the boxing match because it was so left field that I didn't expect, and it worked very well. It was
very different. Like they haven't done anything like that before.
No, and I think that's why I liked it, because I was like, oh, I get what I'm doing. Like I picked it up straight away, and I was like, right, okay, I understand this. My least favourite boss fight, and it's not Queen Gibdo. As much as I dislike that fight, it's actually Phantom Ganon, and the reason why is because Phantom Ganon, while he's fun to fight when there's one of them, as soon as that you get to the second phase and that everything gets gloomed, I was like, this is just infuriating. Like, I did not like it. It was just... And the problem is you can sometimes get, like, twatted, and then you get back up and someone else will hit you down, and it was like... It's very laborious, that fight.
Actually, like, his attacks weren't that interesting. Like, we'll get on to Ganondorf, the main boss later, but Phantom Ganon do that. It was cool that it was back in the game, and I was like, oh, that's such a cool idea. And I was fairly pleased with it, but the actual battle wasn't crazy interesting.
I would have liked it if he didn't do the whole splitting into. I would have liked no gloom, because the thing is, when you have a mechanic which essentially is like your hearts are just disappearing, and you're trying to do a boss fight, and there's like 4 or 5 of them, and you can't run away because they'll just teleport to you anyway. It does get it becomes infuriating rather than fun. If they got rid of that mechanic, I would have liked that boss fight a lot more. But as soon as you start doing the floor is lava, essentially, like I don't enjoy that as a mechanic in any game. No. Doom Eternal, for example, has a boss fight like that, and I fucking hate it. And so I was like, oh, I don't like it. I mean, I didn't enjoy Queen Gibdo for the simple fact is when every time you activate the lightning thing, if you're not close enough to her when you've already whacked her into the light or whatever, she then resets, and like she only takes like 1 or 2 shots, but she then resets.
You didn't have much time to do it. I know what you mean like that, and I think that's why I was put off using that ability generally. Is if it didn't reach, it was just like but it was hard in that boss fight. I think it would have been cooler if it went up quicker, or she just electrified your arrow and you just fire the arrow and it hits her or something, like you know. But it was a cool boss fight. Like that whole area was kind of cool. Like the actual dungeon feels very traditional compared to a lot of the others. Goma, absolutely fine, straightforward. Kind of enjoyed it. The Octorok one I did like because it, like you said, kind of Splatoony. The air one I didn't mind. I thought it was cool, but it never felt like it dodged the hurricanes particularly well. Like it was always like, oh, use my ability and get out of the way, and then you do it, and they would still come like towards you, and I was like, So, but I liked it as a boss fight. I did think it was interesting that you have to dive through it to break it. I think that's I found it really satisfying diving through the ice.
The ice and,
like the dodging the thing was a good challenge, but then just like diving and smashing through the ice was like really satisfying to do. That's what I liked about that one.
No, and it was cool. It was cool. We will come back to Ganondorf. I want to kind of talk about that at the end of this discussion. But what we can talk about is enemies and mini bosses and stuff around the map, kind of leading off from the bosses. I know you told me you really liked the fact that Gibdos were back and stuff like that. Was there was it just them that interested you? Was there anything else in this game that you really liked seeing, returning or new enemies?
Yeah, so just seeing the gift disc, I messaged you because I was like, oh, this is so cool because that's from Ocarina, and it was like they'd brought them back.
I genuinely thought they were re-deads to start with.
Yeah, and then you realise they're not the same thing. I'm trying to remember what else is classic that wasn't in Breath of the Wild. You might need. Maybe I'll come back to that because I might need your help with that.
I don't. I can think of enemy types,
but I mean, let's talk about Gleeoks. So I came across the first one. I came across was the lightning one.
Yeah.
And I was low level, and
they just fucked you up, didn't they?
Destroyed. Then I came across the ice one, which was in Hebra somewhere or something.
Just flying
I think.
around.
No, it was on the ground nearest stables.
Oh, okay.
Or it was near the ground, like in that area. And I thought, oh, I'm a bit stronger now, and I tried to beat it, and I couldn't barely get anything off on it, and I was like, and then I spoke to you about it, and you told me to use the
key size,
to knock
it down,
and I was like, I need to be more creative. I still didn't do it because it started flying so high.
Yeah, it does at the end.
The eyes just weren't. I don't think they were registering it or something like that. So I never beat a Gleeok. I got to I think I must have come across the fire one as well, but I got to that place in the sky, I think it is, where there's the I don't know what they call it, the ultra, like the king or whatever Gleeok, where it's all three of them.
I've not come across that.
No?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I'm pretty sure it was in the sky.
Okay.
It was on a sky island that was really hard to reach.
Yeah.
And it had 3 heads. And it was all 3 of them. It was fire, lightning, and ice.
Okay,
and you had to use different powers on each one. I got really close to defeating that one twice.
Yeah.
And then I got burnt out on it. Maybe I should have persevered. I probably would have got some excellent loot. I probably would have got the best weapon or armor set in the game or something. But I just gave up. So I never beat a Gleeok.
If I'm honest with you, they are incredibly underwhelming when you beat them. So you know how like when you beat a Talos or a Flux Guardian, you get like parts, something you can attach to your weapon. You get that with a Gleeok, but there's the amount of ammo and shit you have to go through to beat a Gleeok, it just ain't worth it.
I went through so many resources. I used all my meals, and I was like, the reason I didn't persevere is because I was like, I don't think I care that much about the treasure to keep doing this over and over again.
Yeah.
And if I do it, I'm going to have no meals left, no weapons, no resources. And I was just like, it's so consuming. But they were awesome. They were amazing. And they were like, they make Lionels look like fucking bokoblins.
Yeah, I mean, so something with this game in general is that any of the big hard enemies, like a Lionel or a Gleeok, I genuinely just could not be fucked. Because the problem is, a lot of the time when you come across like high-coloured Lionels, even with your strong weapons, they take forever to kill.
They're so difficult. Even if you use attack up potions, which I had to for like things like that, it still took so long.
And my biggest problem is it's just not worth it. Like by this point in the game, I've got max health, I've got a ton of items, I can fuse to them. Like it's all good and all that, but like I like fighting Lionels because they always it's fun to flurry rush on and avoid and stuff. But like Stone Taloses, I found them more useful because you'd get like minerals out of them, you get ammo and stuff like that. I think they've made Stone Taloses harder because that ability where they chuck their arm at you, the amount of times that hit me when I was like, I genuinely got pissed off with the game a few times because this game feels harder, but like Stone Taloses they feel like they just track you the entire time.
There was one that was underground that was called like the Igneous Talus or something, and it was like a lava one.
You have to like knock the lava off of it first.
You had to wear the fire resistant clothing, which I hadn't upgraded. Yeah. So they could take more health off me.
Yeah.
And like I could not seem to avoid their attacks, and I was just like, they would take off like 8 or 9 hearts every attack or something ridiculous. I had 20 something hearts, but they were tough. They seemed tougher. I think they felt like they needed to make them tougher in this game.
It's just like the best thing you can do is run around them. I get it. They made them tougher because you can ascend through them, but sometimes you're trying to ascend through one and it doesn't always quite click. Like it depends on the shape of which way the Talos is fighting, and they are just unnecessarily more difficult because you had the battle taluses, which I was like, well, that's a cool idea, having like the things on there. You don't need to make them track as much. What's the other big enemies? You've got the Hinox, which are
Hinoxes. Yeah, I came across one of them early on, and I wasn't very powerful, so I used tons of resources and then got nothing back. But when you get stronger, like they're pretty easy. Yeah.
Like I love the fact that there are these different mini bosses, and I love the Gleox and the Hinox and the bone version of those and like stuff like that. Like I do like the fact that they exist in the world. But it did get to the point where I was like, I don't need any of this stuff. Like, the whole point is that, like, especially with like a Hinox, it's usually tons of food. Like, that's what you find there, food and weapons.
Yeah.
And then the other ones, like the Taluses and the Flux. Like, the Flux Guardians are like the most interesting thing in the world. They have they're so cool. Fight. You get a cool thing out of it.
Their attacks are so like the way they just like reconstruct themselves and attack. The way they attack is like really cool. And you have to like pull the cube out of them. With
you're like yanking things out and stuff. Yeah. Like they were by far my favorite thing to fight because it was like they're straightforward. They're free attack patterns. They were very easy to understand. They might still hit you for a shitload, but they were easy to understand. But in terms of like other enemies and stuff, I quite like the Bokoblin commanders, the big fat boys.
Yes, that was cool.
That was really fun.
They'd have like you have like an army with them. And that was really cool. Yeah,
I like knocking them off cliffs and stuff because in this game, if you just knock someone off a cliff, like bye bye, like it's kind of like see ya. I did find that there were the Bokoblins in general. You have a lot more white ones, which are harder to fight anyway. So I kind of liked that the game was trying to be harder with some of these enemy types. But I'm trying to think what else was new. You had the horror goblins, the ones in the caves that were
Horriblins.
Yeah. They were funny because you drop down and they're like my ass.
Or you could like headshot them and they'd like fall down or something. And they like grab their ass, don't they? Yeah.
It was cool to see Likes return. They are bloody annoying, but it was cool to see them.
They could throw boulders at you and you just get swatted, or
ice and fire.
Those like icy air comes at you and you freeze. But the thing I really liked, I liked seeing them return because they're a classic enemy. But I really liked when you got the thing out of the middle of them that you hit. The sound that it makes was so satisfying. It was like ching ching. There's a real extreme like sound when you smash it, and then you get a chest and other items with it. It was
weird seeing them not eat your shield because that's what I've known likes for. In the older games, they eat your shield. That was kind of. I mean, obviously. It'd be bloody. It's an annoying mechanic, but I quite like the fact that no matter which one you killed, they would spit out a chest. They had eaten something, so it was kind of like that's kind of cool. I'm trying to think what else was new in here because you had a lot of returning enemies. Obviously, the hands coming out the grounds. I forgot what they're called, gloom hands or something.
That was like the replacement for the Guardians.
Yeah. I very much miss Guardians, but I think gloom hands. Did you ever kill one?
I did.
Yeah. So then you have to fight Phantom Ganon.
Yes, so I did fight Phantom Ganon before I went to Hyrule Castle because it just came out. But that was the only time I did that. But I think that was because it was following me around somewhere like a labyrinth or something.
Yes,
I was like, I don't want to leave this area. And I was strong enough to defeat it, but it was difficult. I was like firing arrows at it from a distance. But when I first came across them, it was like they would obliterate me. Yeah. So for a long time in that game, I was just running in the opposite direction. And they are fast.
Yes.
I should have just teleported, but I ended up just running. And it made much more sense if I just like fast travelled somewhere. But I'd often like find a wall and just climb up as fast as possible.
If you look at a map, so somebody had mapped out where they spawn. There's fucking loads in Hyrule Field, but I only encountered a few. And I'm like, there are really this many? They're everywhere. Like that's what made it interesting to me. I think they are like the most horrific and horrifying enemy in the game. You actually have to fight one of them if you do the Great Deku Tree. You have to go down inside of him and actually fight and kill one, and fight Phantom Ganon and stuff. Which in that instance, I liked.
Maybe that was the one that I did.
Yeah, it could have been. You have to go down into him and you're
to save the Deku Tree. Yeah, that would have been it then, because I definitely did that. Yeah, that was the time that I had to beat it then.
I liked, in that instance, fighting Phantom Ganon. That was fun. I didn't like the actual boss fight that you get of it. What else? I'm trying to think what else is new. Like, you've got the Frox, you've got obviously the other constructs that fight you in the sky, like the different, I forgot what they call it, the soldier constructs. Because it didn't feel like there's a huge amount of new enemies.
Yeah, I mean there's enough, but there's not like, because there are already loads of classic ones anyway. The fact that you get Keese and Lynels
Yeah.
and Octoroks and Wizrobes and all of that. Like Breath of the Wild already had quite a lot, and it didn't really remove anything from Breath of the Wild, so they added some more. I did just coming back to Lynels a second. I beat one.
Yeah.
There was one I came on early on, and I was like, I'm not facing this.
I like where they're placed a lot of the time.
There was one where the one I did beat, I was quite beefed up, but like you said, it took me a while to beat it. But then I came across more, and I just turned away. Yeah. I was just like, I can't be bothered.
There's no incentive to fight them.
I could do it, but like there was some armor that required
Lionel bits
to upgrade, but I got that some other way. I can't remember how, but I got them.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And also there was a quest where this woman wanted Lionel pieces.
Yeah.
So that it was useful for that. But generally, like, there was a couple of times I came across them and I was like, I can't be bothered. I don't need to have this encounter. Let's just walk around him.
Yeah, exactly.
But they are still cool. They're such a classic like enemy type.
I love the thing is I do kind of wish there was more of an incentive. Like if they drop like 1,000 rupees or something, if you know you can get like a good chunk of money out of them, and like you obviously get the good weapons, I'll be all for it. But like the problem is that there's a lot of armor in this game that requires very specific things, and I'm just like I can't be bothered. Like I found heat resistant, fire resistant, cold resistant, and good armor, and that was like the 6 or 5 sets that I would have that I'd switch between. I bought like the stealth sets as well, but like I never really used them.
There was a lot of stuff that I didn't use, like hot weather attack, and the froggy suit, which would probably be quite useful, but I just didn't actually seem to rain as much as I thought it might.
What's the Zorus one where you can get the waterfalls?
That's very useful. Yeah.
Like I love that. Like there is, I do like the armor in this game. I like. It's weird that a lot of the stuff that you had in Breath of the Wild you have to go out and get again. Because I know that like, it's one of those things where it's like I liked all the new stuff. It's just there are so many sets of armor, and it's just like.
Obviously, one of the most frequent new enemies is all the Zonai.
Yeah.
All the Zonai like enemies in the
islands and
in
stuff.
The shrines and islands and stuff, and they're different
types,
attack types, and then they give you different
bits and things.
Yeah.
No, I mean this is what was cool about it was that there are a lot of new enemy types, or at least it feels like it, because they all fight differently. It's just when you actually think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of the same and whatnot. There's those flying things, like I can't remember what they're called, but they usually have like they're holding up a goblin.
Oh, the Aerocudas or something like that. Yeah, they're quite.
They die very easily.
Yeah, they're like one shot, like arrow things, but you can get wings and eyeballs from them and stuff. Yeah. They're quite cool.
No, yeah, like because you got like the Yiga returning, and there's no different stuff with them. I think for the most part we've kind of covered all the main new ones that you come across. Did you somewhat on the same track? When you went down to the depths, did you do any of the refights? Because you can refight any of the bosses in the depths and stuff. I don't know if you knew this. Like you could find Goma down there and like have that refight and stuff.
No, I don't think I came across that. Clearly, I didn't do enough of the depths.
The depths are huge. All right, cool. So we talked about the enemies. Talked about that. Let's what have we got left on the list here?
Music.
We've got music. We got story. We've got people you meet, side quests. We'll come back to side quests. Let's talk about like people in the world. Like we will get to story. There are a lot of characters that you meet in this world. Some returning. One thing I very much liked was the fact they recognised you as Link, and they recognised what you did in Breath of the Wild, which is great. Because a lot of time people are like, "Oh hi, can you go and get these things for me?" I'm like, "I'm the fucking champion of like whatever."
Yeah, you get that in Skyrim. Like you are the Dragonborn, and people are like, "Oh hey there, are you right?" And like, you've completed the main quest already, and you've like saved the world from the dragons, and they're like. Yeah, you're right. And like,
I tell you, somebody that I thought was new that I really liked was the guy that's holding up the signposts, and you have to like prop the signposts up for him. Like this, just like absolutely obsessed with these signposts. He was actually probably one of my favourite newer characters.
That was cool. I like those little challenges like that.
Yeah, they were fun. But I like a lot of the returning characters. I like a lot of the new ones like that you meet that are kind of either in cutscenes and stuff like that. Obviously, can't remember the name. The scientist lady's grown up now, so she's a bit older. Her, Robbie, Joshua, like the ones that are in the town.
Yeah.
And then Sidon still, I really like him.
I love the guy from the Clover Gazette thing. I mean, we're getting into...
the bird dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting into side quest territory when we talk about characters, I guess. But, like... He's really cool, and I just like the way he says goodbye. He's like, "So long," and then soars off. And I was like, "Yeah, it's awesome."
I hardly did much of his stuff because there's one where you have to go and check out a cave where like someone can hear a voice, and he's like, "Yeah, can you come with me?" And he's like trying not to be scared.
I did the whole thing.
I should have, but I didn't do it.
They were all really good because a lot of them, and this ties into story, relate to how like Zelda was there, like doing things with people, and everyone is like, that's what I like about the characters in this game is like, everyone's like, oh, this is why Zelda was so great because she helped people with this and that, and she was always helping others, and that the character's appreciation of Zelda made the story that much more kind of gripping. Like that's why you should absolutely do the Clover Clover Gazette thing, it's whatever it's called, quest, is because they all come back to like
all comes
ramblings about where Zelda's been and you know, like trying to find her, and it all relates to the main story basically.
I did like, we'll get on to more of the side quests in a minute, but I did like him as a character. A lot of there's a guy that's trying to impress a girl and he ends up setting fire to the ground. You have to get him fireflies, which I thought was quite funny. That like he's talking about it. It's just a
I did that
dude.
pretty early on, and I'm struggling to remember it all, but I know what you mean.
So there's a mechanic in this game where you have to find musicians to open up the Great Fairies, which I'm going to be honest, I just found really annoying. But I quite like the different musicians, and you had the guy that's like, we're going to make music, and you have to like take them in the cart and get them there and stuff, and like they were kind of fun. So he was quite an interesting character, and each instrument would add something on and whatnot. Yeah,
they would be playing like the music that was from the game, but they would
join it.
It had that kind of like New Donk City feel where like they would add an extra musician.
I always like that.
Crossing over into Mario here. But
I love things that do that when you add to what's going on, and then the fact that you go to the stables and they're always playing there and stuff. What I gotta be honest, my absolute favourite character, I don't know if you came across him. So you're up on the Great Plateau, because that was one of the first areas I wanted to go to. It's like, oh, what's this like now? And there's a guy, turns out it's a Yiga dude, but they're stood there, they're trying to sell you warm banana, live for like 999 rupees or something. And like the dialogue that you have with this character, if you refuse to buy a banana, he's like, well, you're gonna die, and like turns into like a Yiga. Like a lot of their conversations.
I don't know if I did that. I can't remember, but yeah.
So a lot of the time when you were near Yiga places, you'd find people walking around that were disguised. Well, there's another one that's like stood there near. It's on the right hand side of the map where the observatory is or whatever. There's a guy. He's like, yeah, and one of the responses you can give is, "Oh, it's very interesting," and he just looks at you and he just goes, "You have no idea what I'm on about. Now you're gonna die." It turns into a Yiga and has a fight. But like the way it's written and these characters are so stupid.
There's some good humour in the dialogue, isn't there?
Oh my god, some of your responses really from Link are hilarious. Obviously, Tarry Town having what's his name? The guy with the hair, the builder guy. Him and his wife and his kid. I forgot.
Oh yeah.
It's like Sun. It ends in Sun. That's
Hudson.
Hudson, yeah.
Yeah.
Hudson
Construction.
Yeah.
Company.
Like I like that. I do like a lot of the characters, seeing those returning characters. The fact that they remember you as well, and also like what they get you to do. The Formula 1 races or whatever they were, like the two Gerudo ladies. That was pretty cool. Trying to think what else.
I like the fact that the Gorons are all addicted to that rock
stuff.
Like, they're all like,
they're
like drug addicts or something. There's some really like interesting.
It's really dark.
Yeah, it's kind of dark. Yeah. So that was cool. And yeah, there's a lot of just interesting, quirky characters.
You got the well lady who wants you to tell where all the wells are. I don't know if you found her.
Yeah.
Got her. Oh my god!
I love Hestu. I know he was in Breath of the Wild, but he's just like the dance he does just entertains me every time. And the maracas, it's like
They've stolen all my seeds again.
That was better than getting the extra weapon slots. And then like the little things come out the macros at the end. And just the Koroks and Hestu. Like I know they were in Breath of the Wild, but just I love them. Like,
I can't remember his name, but the guy that you would normally sell monster parts on, but this is the one, his brother that wants to eat like the bubble shards. Like their whole like dialogue and him and stuff, he's just a nutter.
He's
quite funny. He's like, just like screams.
Kind of mental.
But
there's so many good ones. Kilton, that's it. It's difficult to cover everything. There's probably a lot we've
forgotten about. The characters in the game are a good laugh. So
overall, like there's a lot of funny dialogue. There's a lot of interesting kind of interactions and things, and some interesting quests that come out of it.
100%. In terms of side quests, then, obviously, I didn't do all of the Gazette stuff, but that sounds like that was a pretty solid set of side quests to do.
It was really good. Yeah, I don't think I actually I think I needed to go back to speak to the woman, so maybe I didn't actually complete it. But I did. I did them all. Every one I went to at every stable, I did them all, and some of the time it would be like you think they're gonna. There was one where you think you're gonna, or more than one maybe, where you think you're gonna track down Zelda, and then it just turns out to be a Yiga person. So a lot of the time it was like the Yiga leading you on. And then other times it was just it was nice because it was like Zelda had been here helping plant certain things or helping people do this and that kind of thing. So that was a cool side quest. I'm trying to think of like
I actually can't remember.
There was so many like that I did, and I really enjoyed them. But it's just difficult for me to kind of place.
I honestly I did enjoy doing all the side quests, but I couldn't tell you getting the musicians was fun. God, I honestly, there's obviously Hatiano village with the
village ones were good. So the Hatano village with the farmers and the fashion people.
Oh my god, fucking the pirates.
Lurelin village, the whole getting rid of all the pirates, that was really cool.
Did you go to Eventide Island in this place?
Yes.
So the actual pirate, because I went there thinking, I'm going to get stripped of all my clothes again or whatever. And you go there and that's where the pirates actually live, and you have to do the art.
There's really 3 different areas of pirates, and you have the health bar, which is the health bar of all of the enemies, kind of thing.
That one trying to protect the village or sort out the pirate. I really liked that because it was like you can kind of do it stealth. I literally just blew them all into the water and they all just drowned. So it was like, okay, cool. I'm trying to think what else there is, because obviously you've got like stuff with Robbie. I will say Robbie's side quests I think should have been mandatory, because that's what gets you the bleep for the shrines, the hero's path, which is whatever, and also the teleport shard. And I kind of wish I'd done his stuff early on, because the bleep for the shrines, especially the ones that are underground, is very useful. They changed the bleep though. I don't think that was the same sound as it was in...
No, I think it was different. I agree. And also it tells you if they're like below you,
which I completely get,
which is helpful.
Which then you're like, fuck, where's the entrance to this cave? I think his stuff should have probably been mandatory, but all in all, his quests, obviously the quests for the drops of the tears, that was a good one.
That was really
story. Good. We will get to story in a minute. We are getting there. I'm trying to think what else. There's like one we have to go and find a horse, but I think it was Zelda's horse or something. Like a lot of the side quests are fun. It's just, for some reason, everything's just blurring into one. Because a lot of the time you're doing stuff.
I should have maybe made a list of some ones that I did, but they're great, and I think I probably did more of them in this than I did Breath of the Wild.
There's also shrine quests to unlock shrines, but that's kind of its own thing, isn't it?
I did the vast majority of the ones I did set. I got set. I completed. There was some where I was just like, oh, I never ended up doing that, and I can't be bothered to go back to it. But most of them, I was like happy to do it, and you get some good rewards, or you get rupees, or you get like some meals or something, or you might get something a lot more. You might get something a lot more substantial than that as well. So, all right. Well, let's talk about story then.
Overall, I would say a better story.
Yes.
But my only thing that I think, and you may or may not agree with this, the one thing I wanted more of Ganondorf. And he is awesome in this, but there's not enough backstory. There's not enough information behind why what happens.
And he doesn't actually... I mean, he is in quite a few of the tier video things, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But I thought they could have made his presence slightly bigger than that, slightly more felt. But overall, I think that this story is more interesting than Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I think there's more mystery around it. You're wondering, where has Zelda gone?
Yeah.
Why is she and what's she doing in the past? You're trying to piece it all together. And this, like, there was some good parts where I just was like, oh wow, that's that. Like, she's that dragon.
Yeah.
That was the big reveal, like a big reveal, and you know, she'd got back to the present in dragon form.
Which, if you actually stop and think about it, means that dragon must have been alive during Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Which is a whole fucking baffle, because obviously you're trying to get Zelda, aren't you?
And it makes sense because that's where you got the Master Sword from in this game as well, and she'd obviously he's that sword had gone
back in time. She's healing it by putting it in the light and stuff.
Yeah, and all of that. So that was really cool. So Breath of the Wild was like, okay, there's Calamity Ganon, we need to get rid of him. And obviously you had the memories, and you wanted to learn about what happened in the past and all of that.
Yeah.
Because I think with Breath of the Wild, it was like, here's this enormous world.
Yeah, go on.
We're happy to put a relatively generic story in here because this is about the world.
Yeah, 100%.
With Tears of the Kingdom, it's like, you've been in this world before. We're going to make it exciting to explore it again, but this time we're going to make the story there's going to be more intricacy to the story and things.
Yeah.
And just finding out what happened in each area with the regional phenomena, with how you thought that you were seeing Zelda and she was leading you in the right direction, but it was actually like a fake Zelda, and it was Ganon's way of trying to lead you towards danger and stuff. I thought that was... all of that stuff was really cool, and I felt like there was it was the sense of mystery, and I felt more gripped by the story this time.
It definitely needed more cutscenes, because there's the bit where you see in the past they meet Ganondorf, and then he leaves, and Zelda's like, oh, I don't like him, and Raru's like, yeah, I don't like him either. And then the next scene is the Queen talking to not Zelda.
Yeah.
They do it, and then Ganondorf turns up and stabs her. It's almost like there's a scene missing.
Yeah.
It felt like that with a lot of it, where it's like the idea is you get clips of it. That's the whole point of the tiers. You're getting clips of it, but it would have, and I get that in a story way. But I think as the player, I wanted to see a much more cohesive timeline of things.
Yeah, I felt like you weren't getting the full narrative.
No.
Sometimes. I understand that they can't show everything because there's probably about half an hour, 45 minutes. I don't know how much all of those clips add up to.
Yeah.
They probably didn't want to bog you down too much, but there were maybe a couple of elements where you thought, I just want to see a bit more than that.
Yeah.
But then again, I guess they didn't. Maybe they wanted to keep a sense of mystery by not showing you too much of the old world or what was happening. So it was kind of like you had to imagine it yourself in certain parts of it. You had to fill in the blanks yourself.
I think it also doesn't help that you just see Ganondorf attacking the castle for no reason.
Yeah.
What is your reason for it? Is it because they don't want to deal with you? Are they being essentially racist towards the Gerudo? Or is it the fact that they've slighted you? That's why I wanted more of Ganondorf, because I was like, this is a fucking amazing design for him. He looks super cool with this game.
Yeah.
Why is he the way he is? Is it he's just evil? That's fine. Show me a little bit more of why he's attacking the castle. Is it because he knows that they have those rings, or he wants to see that they have their powers and stuff? Because obviously Zelda shouldn't be there technically.
Yeah. Maybe in a future Zelda will get some bit more backstory.
I hope
Ganondorf.
so, because I think you could do some really interesting things with him.
Yeah, but the history of Ganondorf, not the entire history, but some snippets.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like I find Ganondorf I mean, he is like evil incarnate most of the time because of DaMonz and stuff. But that's a whole nother fucking topic we're getting to. But like the fact that like in this particular timeline, it would have been cool just to see a little bit more of him. You know, because what is it? It's like every 100 years a man born to the Gerudo in there, or something like that. Like,
yeah, that's what they say. There's any male born every 100 years. So all the women in the desert, all the people in the desert are women.
Yeah. And it's like, it would have been cool to just have a little bit more, just a little bit more. I'm not expecting loads more, but just a little bit more setup. Why he's attacking the castle, you know, and just get kind of more of his thing. Because obviously he's off the power, we get that, but like. It was just like, I'm attacking Hyrule Castle. Now I've gone to Hyrule Castle to pledge my allegiance, which he obviously was being deceiving. And now I've stabbed the queen. Like, it happens very quick. And it's just like, oh, it's a shame that there isn't a little bit, like, just a little bit more filled in there. I'm not expecting lots more, but a couple more cutscenes would have been, I think would have gone a long way just to show him off.
Yeah.
Overall, I do like the setup of the game with the fact that you start the game, you get pulled to the sky, you have no idea how much time has passed, because obviously you've got Raru's arm.
Yeah.
And Zelda goes to the past.
And you're just like, where am I? Like, and how do I get to her? And where am I going? You just feel like quite alone. Like you've been pulled away from... Because essentially, everything's fine at the start, and they're just exploring together and learning. And then suddenly, like, it's just like, okay, Zelda's gone.
Yeah. And you don't know from that moment, obviously you see the castle rise up, but how long is Link out for, you know, he wakes up with a different arm? Like, is that a month? Is that... what's the time period here? We don't really know.
Whereas Breath of the Wild tells you how long...
I mean, I assume he wasn't out for long, because, you know, he loses his arm to the corruption, and he obviously gets Raru's arms. But it is to me, it feels like maybe it's like a month or something, because they're obviously searching for you and Zelda. How long has that search been going on for? Just like things like that would be kind of cool to know, but... Overall, I do like the way that the story's kind of told to you, and you can go and just find the story straight away if you want to go to all the tiers and stuff and get it that way, or you can explore the world being like, what the fuck's happened since like this you know, castle's risen up and stuff like that. I do like it. It's not the craziest story.
No, it's not got too many twists, not that many twists and turns.
The biggest twist is Zelda,
but it's got that sense of mystery, and I like the fact that all the characters are talking about, like, they know who you are, and they're talking about stuff. Zelda missing. So even if you're doing side quests or you're going off doing random side whatever it might be, you're always reminded about the fact that Zelda is missing. And that, like, or you're telling them that Zelda is missing, or like you, and they're like, oh, she's still missing, or like all that kind of stuff, and it's like it comes back to the story kind of thing. How do you think it compares to Breath of the Wild story then?
No, it is better. It is better, because the thing is, what makes Ganondorf interesting is it's like, for the most part, he is a person. So you're dealing with somebody on your level, rather than, hey, there's something happening over the castle. We need to go and deal with that. We've got these divine beasts and there's this weird fucking hodgepodge like bot. I mean, Calamity Ganon looks weird anyway. At least with this, you see, by unlocking the story, like, you see what happens to Ganondorf and how he becomes the Demon King and that sort of stuff. Which does lead on to that final section of the game, getting to him and that fight, which is one of my favourite parts of the game. Like, it's very difficult, it's very tough. When you get to him, that fight is one of my favourite fights. It's a good final fight, because he does something that I was not expecting, which I really enjoy, is when you flurry rush him, he just does it back to you. He just goes, no, fuck you, and you have to dodge him again.
I kept, like... And then I thought I could attack him afterwards, but I just couldn't reach him after he'd flurried me, and I was like, ah!
And I love that stage, where he's just like... He's heard about Link. So the entire time, he's heard about Link. He doesn't know who you are. And so when he's just like, I'm going to fuck you up. Like, that's kind of his whole thing. He's just like, I'm just going to fuck you up. And you eventually wail on him to the point where he's like, okay, you're a lot stronger than I thought. And what I liked about that fight is the Master Sword, you use it, it doesn't break. Normally the Master Sword, you use it in the... Because
it's glowing when you fight him.
And
it's just like... you can just use it as much as you want. And the thing with that was I was I've used loads of weapons before I went down there. Like,
you didn't even need it.
I didn't even need them.
Because I think I said out loud when I got to that fight, and like it starts. I was like, "Let's go, asshole!" And like you're doing it. One of my favorite parts of that fight is when he gets his health bar, and the health bar just keeps going and keeps.
Oh,
going,
that was insane!
Straight to the
it's
end.
like triple the length of like a normal.
It's like it goes off the screen.
Yeah,
it was just such a dumb thing.
I was like, when's it gonna stop?
But what's really cool is that like you're fighting him like that, and he actually felt challenging. I found that if I stayed close to him, it's fairly straightforward. But like, he has different moves. He's got the sword, the bow. I think it's a bow. Sword, spear, hammer, bow, and like he has a lot of attacks. But that was a satisfying fight, and I think it was just like, okay, this is the kind of fight I expect.
Yes.
From the final fight. I mean, don't get me wrong, my armor was very well upgraded. I only took like 1 or 2 damage when I got hit, but I really enjoyed fighting him like mano a mano, like kind of thing, and I was like, this is really cool. And I think it absolutely blasts pretty much every other boss fight out of the game. Realistically, like it's way better than the rest of them.
Yeah.
So I very much enjoyed getting to him finally after all that playtime. You're like, I'm gonna fuck you up, like, you know. And he's just. That's why I wanted more of him in the game, because he has this evil presence the entire time, and when you fight him, he's so fucking cocky and like.
Yeah, and then you got the dragon stage.
The dragon part was like a better version of like the Ganon like fight that you have when you fight the pig Ganon part at the end of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
well.
and then Zelda comes out, and you've got some quick time events where you're like kind of trying to grab her out of the air and all of that, and then you get the dialogue, and then after the credits you've got like a 5 or 6 7 minute sequence with all of the sages and stuff, and I was like, okay, this is a much more epic ending, because I felt that my biggest gripe with Breath of the Wild, I mean, I absolutely love that game. It's still one of the best games ever made.
100%.
But like the final fight was anti-climax. Yeah. Because your sages or whatever they are in that game, the kind of the people that you from beating the Divine Beast, they all come down and they take half his health off, and then you finish them off, and then it's like, oh, that was that. Yeah. But this one, you have to defeat loads of enemies in the depths. Like there was like a, what do you call it, not a gur something. When you've got like waves of enemies in a game.
Oh right, like you have like wave 1, wave 2, like kind of like.
I can't remember what the word is, but a gauntlet.
Gauntlet,
like a mini enemy gauntlet. Yeah. And then you go and face Ganon, and there's 2 stages, and then you do the dragon. Yeah. And it was just like, this is a more much more epic ending. Yeah.
And I think he's dead. Like I don't see him coming back. Yeah. He blows up basically. Which is, you know, overall the story's nothing groundbreaking. There's a fun few twists. I think they did a really good job with the characters they had. I would love to see in the future, if they're going to use the same people to do these characters, please figure out a way of getting more backstory, more cutscenes, more of them acting. Because, you know, I want to see that with these characters. I like what was there. I think that's really cool, but it's just I kind of want a little bit more. And I get that Zelda's never been this big. Like the story's always kind of played second fiddle to the rest of it. But it would be kind of nice to see something on that level with more of it. I guess then there's a couple more things we can finish up with, right? We might as well talk about the performance of this game.
I've got music and performance.
Oh, let's start with music. Let's start with music and then go from performance. Like, what was it? New music that you liked, or like what was the?
So a lot of the music was the same.
Yes,
I'd say. Which was like to be expected if you're in the same world. Yeah. There were slightly different versions of the same songs. So when the same pieces. So when I went to the Rito area for the first time, it would be like, and it was all snowed over. Yeah. It would be like the same music, but like a sort of like a slower or like kind of more minimalist version, because everything was frozen over and you had to rescue them. But yeah, I didn't mind it. I mean, it's obviously, I absolutely love video game music, and Zelda has probably, like, as a series, has some of the best video music I've ever come across. And I know a lot of people didn't think that much of the Breath of the Wild music, which is insane to me because there's so much great music in that game, like the shrine music, Hateno Village, Tarry Town, like there's a whole like a bunch of songs that I really like in that.
Yeah.
And you've got all that again, and I'm happy to see it all again. So yeah, there's not much new music. There's the new shrine music, which you've agreed is not as good. There's
the new remix of the shop music that plays when you're building a house, which I didn't
do that quest, and you played it to me before we recorded this, and I was like, I'm so happy to hear that.
I hate that track, but I really like this version of it. Like, it's a slowed down, methodical version of you while you're building, and that's really, really cool. There's music for the Gloom Hands, which is new. I call it music. It's like it's like this weird fucking
thing. Yeah, that's quite good.
Sky Islands has new music.
Yes. Yeah, no, there was some good, like, little atmospheric pieces in places. I think some of the music that I enjoyed the most was in some of the cutscenes, particularly towards the end, as you were finishing. You'd get, like, different versions of, like, there was definitely a couple of versions of Zelda's Lullaby in there.
Yeah.
And in the credit sequences, there were nods to, like, older pieces of music and stuff, and I really enjoyed that because it made it feel more Zelda-y again. You know, when, like, some people were saying, "Oh, Breath of the Wild, there's not that much Zelda in there." So when I get like older classics in there, you get that feeling that this is obviously a Zelda game.
I think it's when you jump off the Sky Island and the credits come, the title screen comes up. That's when it plays like the Zelda main theme, doesn't it? Like I think that's when it plays.
Yes. Yeah.
You hear like I think it plays there or plays at the end. I can't remember.
Yeah, that was really good. I love the Tarry Town music. I said that earlier. It's the married one. So there's in Breath of the Wild there's like a normal one, but then after you do the build the town and the wedding happens, there's like an additional bit in there with like a trombone or something.
Nice.
But that's the music that plays throughout in this version. I really like that. So in terms of there's not too much new music, and it's kind of to be expected. It would have been weird if Kakariko Village. It was nice to go back to the same Kakariko Village and the music be the same.
I know what you mean.
If they'd redesigned Kakariko, then you'd expect new music. But if you're in the same world, you kind of expect to get that same feeling out of that village.
I think maybe I would have been okay if they were different, like the same track but like remixed or something, just to show that time had moved on.
Yeah.
Like I mean, Hatayano's fine. You don't have to change that one. That's great. But a lot of them, I was like, I like it. I'm glad I'm hearing this stuff, but I would have been fine if they were new, updated versions. But I get, like, this game does let's get this argument out of the way. This is not DLC. This is a fucking massive game, and there is a lot of stuff that's reused, the music included, and that's okay. Like, there is new music. There's new everything. But yeah, I would have liked to have maybe heard some remix stuff, but there is stuff in there that to enjoy. And this is probably like a one and done. I wouldn't want this again. I don't want the same big world. I don't want the same stuff. Like, I want to see new stuff.
We're hopefully they're like, I'm very, very glad they made this game.
Yeah.
I was when I realized the world was going to be the same. I was like, a bit
risky.
Like, but they did so much with it. It was worth it. But now they need to do something totally different.
Yeah, 100%. So let's finish up about performance then, because this game, while it is impressive that it never seems to crash on me, a lot of people said the frame rate's pretty consistent, but Jesus Christ, there are some areas of this game where it just chugs.
Yes. So, there are obviously like frame drops in Breath of the Wild where, like if you're in a really dense forest, or particularly in Korok Forest, there were some frame drops, but I never found it to be a problem, and I thought the people complaining about it were like being really picky, considering how epic the game is and how it didn't affect my overall experience. This game is choppier.
Oh yeah.
If you get into a bit, say if you're in an area where there's a bokoblin leader and loads of bokoblins, and you've got all your companions with you, and you're having a manic fight,
fire and God,
it gets choppy.
Yeah.
And that happens whenever there's a lot of enemies, a lot going on screen, and it is kind of like, I mean, it's worse than Breath of the Wild, and it does distract you from your immersion a bit. And you think, this shouldn't be happening too much. So it's not ideal, but at the same time, I'm just like, you know what? This game, the rest of this game is so epic. The fact that I can there's 3 different maps, and I can go through them seamlessly.
Yeah.
Is pretty incredible. And doesn't really like ruin the experience for me. I did not encounter any bugs in this game. I did not feel on myself.
I did.
Didn't you? So I didn't notice any problems with hitboxes, or I didn't fall through anything. No enemies disappeared. There's the lizards always disappear when they run off. But that's always they're meant to do that. I didn't actually encounter any bugs, so I was curious as to whether you did and what they were.
One bug.
Okay.
And so I had a couple of blocks stacked in a shrine, and I would hold up to climb, and Link would climb down through the floor and then pop back up again. It's the only time it happened. And other than that, like I might have had visual and audio things, but they were probably very, very minor. But in terms of the game holding together, nothing went broke or anything like that. It was just that one time where I'd hold up and he would go down. And
that's strange.
Very odd.
Generally, I think this game is pretty. I mean, we said there was frame rate problems, but they for a day one thing, like it's far more polished than a lot of games that come out now day one, but like patches where they've been released as messes. They get reviewed badly because they're so jank. You can tell that Nintendo spent some time on it, even though they delayed it by a year
just to bug fix.
Yes,
which is insane, and only they have a lot of money.
Probably very important if there were gonna due to be bugs in this game, then it's pretty important that they delayed it.
Overall, like, the game is very solid. Like, it does run as best as it can, but you are going to notice drops, and that is going to hamper some experience. It definitely put a downer on some parts for me. Like, it is annoying when games start to chug like that and things like that. So this is a game that hopefully whenever the next Nintendo console comes out, they can put it onto that and have it running at a locked 30 frames with no drops. That would be
maybe
perfect.
60.
60 would be amazing, but I'm not going to ask for the world.
I can't really expect Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch to run at 60.
No, but if they've got better hardware, they should definitely be like trying to get it either locked or significantly better. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, there is performance issues, and I think that maybe they were slightly overlooked a bit too much in the fact that the game just doesn't break with Ultra and stuff, but they are there, and I think people need to be aware of that if they haven't played it. Like, they are there, and you will see frame drops. You know, it does happen as soon as you activate Ultra Hand. As soon as you start doing crazy stuff, they're there. So that's kind of the biggest slight against it.
It was actually. You're right. When it was when you were using Ultra Hand, the frame drops happened a lot. Yeah.
So we've been talking for a bloody long time. Is there any final thoughts that you have on this game before we wrap up?
I think I just want to say, as I said at the start, this was an epic experience. It was an absolutely fantastic game. It is, as we said when Breath of the Wild was out, that was one of the best games of all time. This is now one of the best games of all time. It's going to be known. It's probably going to be Game of the Year. It's definitely going to be contender. I don't know whether it'll beat like
Starfield or something.
Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever else, anyone else is loving this year. But it's definitely going to be a contender, if not winner. It's going to be known as one of the best games of the decade.
Yeah.
The 2020s up there with like Elden Ring or whatever else has come out so far. I had an absolute blast with it. Obviously, 125 hours of absolute joy. Loved playing it.
You want to hear?
It's such an achievement. There's so much good stuff. Obviously, we've covered this off, covered loads of it, and it's just so impressive. Like, it's just so creative, imaginative. The amount of stuff you can do, like crafting, like the abilities, like ascend and recall and all of that. Like, we haven't touched on everything. We've just touched on most of the newer stuff. We touched on a lot, but it just took so much creativity and imagination by the brains at Nintendo to come up with this. Like, they obviously took so much care, and I mean, we didn't talk about graphics and art style because it's essentially the same as Breath of the Wild, but it's a visually beautiful game. So much fun, great puzzles, great quests, great exploration. Like, it's all fantastic, and I don't know where they go from here. They'll have obviously, we've already said this, they'll have to go do something else, but this could have been this could have been too similar to Breath of the Wild, considering it used the same overworld.
Yeah.
But they did so much with it that they've created. This isn't just another game. It's not just like another another add-on.
There's a lot.
It's entirely its own thing, even if it uses the same overworld. I think we've had this conversation before today, where we've said that you've said this before. And I agreed with you. Maybe it was in the video that you previously did. I don't think this game should have DLC. This game is
fuck no.
If anything, this game is almost too big as it is.
It is too big.
It's maybe a bit too big. The depths, there's no reason to do everything in the depths or even half of it.
Yeah.
So I actually don't want to see DLC for this game, because I think, I don't know. I say that, but then if they released it and it was amazing, I'd probably love it.
Yeah,
but I think it's fine as it is. So big, it doesn't need DLC. That's my thought.
Yeah, my final thoughts are this. Right, I was never the biggest Zelda fan growing up. I like the 2D stuff, not the 3D stuff. This isn't new. A lot of people know this. Breath of the Wild, I think, has had a bigger impact on me than Tears of the Kingdom. But I think Tears of the Kingdom is a better game overall. And I think these two games will always be looked upon as the big change that Zelda probably needed at the time. It might not be the change that everyone wanted, but it was the fact that it became something very different, something bigger, and tried to do new things rather than the same stuff. Overall, I think this game is fantastic. I think a lot of people get a lot of fun out of it and enjoy it. But for me personally, like, it's up there. It is that 10 out of 10 everyone wants, but it's never going to quite have the same impact that Breath of the Wild did. But what this game does do is beyond what that game ever did. And I think that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's obviously not as original, like just coming out into the world in Breath of the Wild and just being like, oh my god, this is insane. But it is even better, because it's like, it's taken it to the next level, and it's like, oh my god, they expanded on Breath of the Wild and made it even better.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. And I know I said a moment ago that it's going to be game of the decade. I don't know, one of the games of the decades. One of the games of the 2020s, one of the best ones. I mean, it's one of the best games of all time, so I don't know why I said of the decades, but I'm looking at different lists here. It's going to be on the best games of all time list. It's going to be in the best games of 2020 list. It's going to be a contender for Game of the Year, if not winner of Game of the Year. We'll see what happens with Starfield and whatever else. Yeah. But yeah, I had a fantastic experience. I have watched a couple of reviews now. I've watched some videos on the crafting and the building.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I do when I complete a game and just see what the community is talking about, see what videos there are on YouTube, see what public opinion is, find some bits and pieces, and then, because I'm not ready to tackle another big game for a while yet. I need to deconstruct my thoughts about this. And I've said this to Levi before, I'm probably going to do a written review or some kind of piece for this. So I don't mean to plug before I've even produced anything, but you might be hearing from me. Yeah.
Alright. We've been talking for a very long time. Those are our thoughts on Tears of the Kingdom. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've listened to us rambling. If you like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content like this and hopefully get Mark and Dave back on to doing a lot more shows, then hit subscribe, because that's the plan. That's the long goal. Links for Facebook and Twitter will be down below in the description as always. And like most times, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from Mr. Mark.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening.